All right, boys.
Wow.
Back on my bullshit again with these dumbass how does this get to this title slides.
Before we get to this, welcome to
Okay.
Tales from the Slide Deck, a podcast experiment. Should just be a video, but instead we're making slides because we're all adult men with jobs that need have much other things to do.
And 1/3 of this podcast can't video edit.
We made this as easy as possible on ourselves, and we still made it complicated. But regardless, I'm Ryan.
I'm Tay-Rob. I'll be your host for the evening.
And I am the man in the machine, Zach.
Zach, they put you in a
Not saying my last
Zach.
name.
They put you in a typer.
Yep, I'm in the
He's a
clicky
computer
clack.
Oh.
I'm a part of Elon Musk's reality now.
Thankfully,
I'm
the
in
world seems
robot.
to be catching on with what a dumb bitch grifter Elon Musk is.
Oh, yeah.
Because thankfully the stock, instead of doing what it always does whenever Elon comes out and just lies about what he's gonna do, and it just stock go up forever. It dropped 10%.
Oh, you're telling me actions have consequences?
Finally, this time around,
What?
finally, even though he's been promising autonomous self-driving vehicles for over pretty much a fucking decade at this point.
Yeah, but he made it expensive and impractical and
more dangerous.
dangerous.
At least a Waymo cab, which is like Silicon Valley, Bay Area,
Yeah,
LA.
yeah.
They're these Chevys or something that are autonomous self-driving Ubers.
Yeah,
But they
saw
have-
one. I saw one when I was in San
Yeah, but they
Francisco.
have
Go
a
ahead, sorry.
steering wheel and pedals. So if something
It's
goes
still
wrong,
a car.
you can jump in the front seat and drive it.
Yeah.
If you're just taking off towards the bay.
Yeah.
In Elon's, nope. There's no way to control it outside of the vehicle.
That seems like a good setup for a sci-fi comedy, where it's just put the ship in manual mode, and it's there's no manual mode.
There's no fucking yoke.
There's no joystick.
There's no PS2 controller.
It's just the computer.
But anyway, that's a story of automation gone
I
wrong.
know.
Let's focus on a company that does automation right, as we've learned through Jidoka.
The Keanu Reeves.
That is Keanu Reeves.
We, in worst case scenario, we do still have Keanu, even if the Optimus bot goes bad. We did learn through the Matrix quadrilogy that he can save us.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's
He's the one.
with positivity
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a gun.
And friendship.
and a nice fitting blazer,
Mm-hmm.
usually.
But yes, that is this man right here, and yes, he is he's in a Toyota, and it's in GR livery.
This happened recently, didn't
This
it?
happened last weekend.
Okay.
This happened I had to make this a part of
Whoa,
this episode.
fresh.
Oh,
Because it's oh shit, that's cool.
you had to go back to the source and correct what the beginning of this episode. Okay.
Not well. I mean, I made this title slide a couple days ago, but yeah, no, it was definitely something didn't think that would be in this episode at all. But yeah,
Here we
so
are.
we're gonna cover
We're gonna cover the
things.
worst character on the Flintstones, Gazoo,
And
the
the
green,
Jetsons.
the green man from Mars. He was also in Jetsons.
Yeah,
See,
he
I
was-
didn't watch enough Jetsons.
Yeah.
He was a cross-universe character who
I hate him more.
who just tormented the dads of these American cartoon sitcoms.
He was when you knew it was going to be a bad episode of the Flintstones is when this little green shit showed up.
Well, you just knew that at that point because, I don't know, the Gazoo was the 70s, so these cartoons had been on for a decade
Yeah.
at this point in time. So it's fuck, they're out of ideas.
Yeah, Scrappy Doo, I believe is the actual name of the trope. When something gets Scrappy Dooed and you get that oh, here we got a new character. It's been syndication for a couple of years. We're bringing it back and we're doing new episodes of Flintstones. I don't know. They meet an alien.
Yeah. But Gazoo, this is the only other
This
time.
episode has nothing to do with
The Great Gazoo?
No.
But it's the only other time in any language that word will come into play, other than our subject matter for today. This is a map of a race course. We'll talk about it a little
Ooh.
bit more.
Can I guess? Have we talked about this race course before?
No, I don't believe so.
The one on the Isle of Man?
No.
Okay.
No, this is not.
I don't know, Taylor. I've been doing a lot of GeoGuessr, and that does look exactly like Great Britain, England.
Well,
I mean,
maybe a little bit. not really. But it does look like a racetrack, which does exist for real in the world.
It is. Is it 2 racetracks, or does it have a jump and some sort of Mario Kart thing going on the bottom there?
It's actually like 3 racetracks. There's like
Oh.
a bigger part, a smaller part, and one that connects it. But we're gonna talk about that in due time, boys.
Okay.
Yeah. So there we go. The cover.
Woo!
So we'll start this episode with part 1:
Whoa.
the man who knows all the world's roads.
The Grindergate Bridge.
Was that a David Bowie
It is
song?
not.
I'm the man who knows the world's roads.
It's a little clumsier than the man who sold the world. And I never heard Nirvana.
I like this man more though.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna get to know him here in a second.
Wait, this is Rainbolt. This is Rainbolt, the
You're not
GeoGuessr
wrong.
guy.
Rainbolt is the man who knows all the world's roads, and he also knows all the world's dirt.
Yeah.
For sure. But no, so this is part 1 of part 3 of this presentation.
Oh my god.
We are about to meet this man, and that man is Hiromo Naruse.
I love him.
Yes.
He looks like
Wow.
he looks very nice, but he also looks like he could be a very angry person.
We'll discuss that. He
looks like he knows a lot of private businessmen.
He does. He has some very important friends, which will come into play later in his life when he looks like this. Although, for my records, he may have always looked like this. There is no picture of this man as a young person. I honestly, boys, wasted about 30 minutes trying this today. And
Yeah.
on top of all the other things I had to do, like finish this presentation, do all of my, 15 pages of notes on this fucking episode, I spent 30 minutes of that valuable time trying to find a picture of this man where he didn't look like he was 8,000 years old already. Could not find one.
Japan's
Hard.
Benjamin Button right here.
And I think it's really
Uh-huh.
mostly due to the fact that he's not that well known of a figure within Toyota lore. You have to kind of be in the deep cuts. You have to kind of really be a real Toyota hipster to know about good old Naruse-san. He was born July 18th in 1942 as the youngest of 4 children.
Okay.
And his upbringing was certainly not easy. Not long after his birth, his father died in World War II.
I was gonna say there's a war going on. Of course,
Whoa.
no
Yeah.
childhood's gonna be easy.
Born right smack dab in the middle of the war. His father didn't make it out of that war. He was raised in a rural area of Japan known as Aikita Town, which is in the Gifu Prefecture. That's where this picture is from.
Ah, pretty.
It's a bridge over, I believe, the Ibi River.
Troubled waters.
Don't look at me.
That was a rhetorical question to the universe. I'm not looking for confirmation from either of you boys. From my understanding, Aikita Town it's like the Stanwood of Japan.
Okay.
It's a incredibly small town.
Great reference for
Yeah.
everybody. Everybody enjoys a nice
Everyone
Stanwood
loves
reference.
one.
Yep.
But we're talking like a town that's population is only maybe a couple thousand, spread out, rural farmland.
Modern day 25,000 people.
Okay.
So bigger than modern day Stanwood, but still very rural. And there's another more popular and well-known Aikita in Japan. So
it's like no. My business trip is to the other Aikita. This bump fuck with the world's most beautiful bridge.
And during his
Oh.
formative years, he spent time driving mountainous, hilly country roads. And because his family didn't have much money, due to the fact that, Dad died during the war, his family did have a car, which was pretty actually I honestly don't know how a family of a single mom in 1950s Japan was able to afford a vehicle, but they did have a charcoal powered car.
That is the coolest shit I've ever heard.
This is just a picture of a charcoal power car.
Yeah, no, this isn't theirs. I mean,
I'm-
you could assume, but still, car's a luxury item at that time.
Very much so. And
Yeah.
also the reason why charcoal power cars were very popular in the UK as well as Japan at the time was on these island nations, petroleum or gasoline was extremely hard to come by.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult and very expensive thing to have. So sort of decades before, like even the Ford Model T had come out, there were automobiles, and one of the ways of fueling these automobiles
Yeah.
was wood gas generators, which is what you see here mounted
Your
into
R2 unit in the back of the car.
into the back. Yeah,
That's a
so
porta potty, buddy. I've seen a
Shitter.
porta potty.
this is just
before.
kind of mostly a big wood stove that
Yeah.
you load all your charcoal into, and then it burns it. And,
Like a
Yeah.
train. Like you have a little mini train situation going on in the back. You have your youngest just feeding the fire, making sure the car can go. That's
That's
so
how
funny.
you
That's
earn
so
your
funny.
spot out of backseat on the middle is
Really, the only major difference between like a steam engine, like you would find on a train,
Yeah.
or early automobiles, and the wood gas generator is like the steam. Is the thing that produces the heat to like turn the motor. A wood gas generator, like it takes the smoke from the charcoal and like cools and condenses it into what is called town fuel, which.
You read my mind. I was gonna ask, like, okay, what's this different from a steam engine? Because I'm not seeing like a boiler, though one could be hidden on this car, but no boiler. It's just the smoke.
No, I think it's like around this point here. It's kind of like with like a still where you take like the alcohol vapor
Yeah.
and you condense it back down and you rid it of its impurities. This takes the wood smoke and like concentrates it into something that will be combustible. But yeah, so this.
Well, for it to see one and for it to look modern
yeah.
too, like for it to be running on something like petroleum, gasoline, we associate with modern cars and modern like looking things. Like this was aerodynamic too, and it also functioned off of charcoal, which is interesting. Interesting that those two things could collide together.
Speaking of collisions, this seems like the worst possible car you want to rear end. Because you're just gonna get sprayed with hot coals.
I mean, that's true. That would be bad.
True. Yeah.
I don't know. There's like hydrogen fuel cell vehicles that could possibly become a bomb in the worst case shenanario.
Yeah,
So, of which Toyota makes. I think from what I was reading, like this was like very popular in post World War II Europe. I didn't find a lot about the Japanese charcoal powered cars, just other than it was a popular option and likely was imported from a European automaker, if I were to guess. But they had a range of like roughly like I think it was for roughly like 75 pounds worth of like charcoal that you would load up into that back tube there. You get about 50 miles. So it's not really all that super efficient.
No, but it is, especially in your post-war Europe and Japan, it is probably very, I mean, everything's condensed a lot more there anyway. So it's just kind of like you're never making a 20-mile round trip somewhere.
Very rarely, no. You're
You're
not
just-
like driving into Tokyo or anything
No,
from Aikita town. But yeah, so their family being very poor, they didn't have a lot of money, so what they did have, they had to keep going. That's where young Naruse-san learned to work on cars. To keep the family car on the road, he had to wrench on it to keep it going. And yeah, this is a view of like, I think the Ibi River also that runs through Aikita town, and then Mount Aikita, which is sort of like, I guess that's a mountain in the background. But yeah, that was what was in his formative years. He did end up going to school. I don't know if he actually had like a formal college education, but he did end up at least becoming a certified mechanic, as well as becoming certified in the abacus, which did lead to an interesting choice when he had joined the Toyota Motor Corporation in 1963.
Oh. Well, I mean, when you say the abacus, you mean he was good at math.
He just
Right.
had like a certificate, like, you know, like in like school.
You got to be certified to work in abacus?
If you're doing it professionally, yeah. And I mean, it's sort of like that Yakuza trope from like when you go to the school where you get all these like certificates and like, oh, you're good at talking to people now. So you're like, Kasuga's score goes up. It's sort of along those lines. You go to like a trade school to get certified in a thing you do for a job.
It's like a CPR
Like, we got to
certification.
hire him. He's got an abacus certification.
That's part of what Toyota had thought was like, well,
We weren't going to hire you, buddy, but you got this abacus certification, and that really puts you to the top of the resumes.
Well, I guess this is also the era of yes, mechanical computers exist, but they are room size and clunky. So you got a lot of people,
Oh no, I mean the slide rule in the abacus did also help send a man to the moon.
Yeah,
Like...
yeah. No, they don't just disappear. But you got to have somebody who's great with an abacus to just and be a human calculator at that point.
Exactly, to like justify, oh, we use the big expensive machine that takes forever to do like calculations. Jerry with his abacus and slide rule need to like justify, like, should we waste the great machine's time in running these calculations for us? And yeah, so Naruse, like,
I have not thought of an abacus in like 25 years,
since
guys.
like elementary
Like,
school.
Abacus is like an early calculator, right? Like one column keeps your now tallies, another one keeps your ongoing
Zach, I'm gonna be honest with
tallies.
you, I don't fucking
right?
know how an abacus works. I'm too stupid for
All
that.
right, cool.
You
All
got,
right.
you got
We're all in the
fives
same boat.
and
We're all in the
fives
same
and ones
boat.
on the Japanese abacus.
All right, one of us knows how an abacus works.
It's beads. You count the beads that are on one side or the other.
But yeah, since he was certified in being an abacus when he joined the Toyota Motor Corporation in 1963, there was a strong consideration to add him to the accounting department. Like, they were sort of stuck, like, hey, this guy's a certified mechanic, but he also knows how to use an abacus, so like maybe we could use him as an accountant. And for
Whoa, bronze and brains.
I know.
Whoa.
But thankfully, for the like sake of this story, Toyota made the much more interesting choice and hired him on as a temporary mechanic. So the torque wrench wins out over here. And so Hiromu Naruse, he works at Toyota. Starting as a temporary mechanic, he's good enough. He actually gets to stick on as a role as a mechanic position. He's inevitably added to Toyota's Team 7, which is a kind of skunk works. They're like the folks who are sort of, as we discussed in the rally episode, after Toyota got like a taste for racing after
okay, so this is like 60s,
early 60s.
Okay.
And like they Kaiichiro Toyota had talked about like, we need to race cars because like through the act of racing cars, we learn how cars can be made more reliable, more dependable, how perform better. This is how we make ever better cars. And so he was part of Toyota Team 7. They were sort of focusing on the performance and reliability aspects of the corporation. And then by, the mid to late 60s, early 70s, like he was becoming one of their chiefest test drivers.
Oh, cool.
For their vehicles. And test drivers have become, in the car guy world, kind of minor or major celebrities. Two pretty big examples are Walter Roll of Porsche. He was a famous rally driver. He won a ton of rally races.
Famous scowler.
Very famous scowler. He is German. But no, so he won a ton of races back during WRC's Group B, the insane times. He was a championship driver at those points of times, had a long racing pedigree, inevitably ended up on a Porsche team, and then after he had retired from racing, had stuck around as their senior test driver. So a lot of like Porsche's like upper echelon performance vehicles like the Carrera GT, the GT2 and GT3 RSs, basically anything with the Rennsport or RS label on it, like is test driven by Walter Roll to get that approval of like, yes, this is a performance vehicle. He was also, such a good driver in his rally, like both like the Italian and French governments or like publications within their rally racing syndicates had named him driver of the century and rally driver of the millennium.
Okay, so I mean, not just famous, not just a celebrity in their own community, but a renowned
pedigree.
Walter's here to test drive our car, like.
And in the world of testing cars, when you take your car, like your new prototype car to a test track, you're looking to break like a lap record because that just gives you like that much bigger a dick and helps sell that car that much better. And then to our right, we have Valentino Balboni.
Just racing away from his ex-wives.
Yeah. Valentino Balboni.
Boner.
Was a test driver, a legendary test driver for Lamborghini. He had started in 1963 as well as a apprentice mechanic, or I believe it was actually 1968. 1968 is when he began his career for the company, and then a few years into his career, being beyond apprentice mechanic to mechanic, he was hand selected by Ferruccio Lamborghini to become a test driver, and then he quickly became like the chief test driver for Lamborghini, and like probably one of the craziest statistics about it is by the time the Italian government forced his retirement in 2008. There's labor regulations of like you get to work for 40 years. After 40 years, like you have to retire. It's
Cool.
very cool. So by the time of his forced retirement in 2008, it was like not only 80% of like the models ever created, like the different models of cars, but no, 80% of all Lamborghini cars had been test driven by this man.
They got the Valentino seal of approval.
Basically, yeah, if you've bought a Lamborghini,
He giving them a little kiss on the hood before
The
he send them
engine,
off to
she
the little
purrs.
dealership.
he personally fucked the tailpipe of every Lamborghini since 1974 or some shit. But no, like it's insane that like for a singular automaker, for one person to have like personally sat in,
Like he's their guy.
he like if you own a Lamborghini, there's a good chance this man drove the car to give it his seal of approval before it was like sent off to be sold. And to
That's
like
pretty cool.
celebrate that, the car that he's standing next to right there, that's a 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo, a car that they'd been making for roughly 7 years at that point in time. But this is the special Balboni edition.
They gave me a car.
The regular Gallardo.
It's a beautiful car.
The regular Gallardo was an all-wheel drive car. His was rear-wheel drive to be more sporty and like more drifty and more reckless and you know. But yeah, so that's test drivers, and like we know of these test drivers, but a guy like Hiromu Naruse, don't really know much about him.
He's the unsung hero.
We know that he was a test driver for Toyota, and so it's known that like I don't know, Toyota culture does less to like glorify the individuals and more glorify like the team that helps a vehicle get into production. Very like Japanese business culture of
Yep.
like no one man is going to be the hero in this situation. And this is probably why Naruse's name isn't as ubiquitous as Walter Roll or Valentino Bamboni.
Well, that and it probably goes without saying, test driving super dangerous.
It can be. Yeah.
It can be. I mean, racing in its own is dangerous, but if you're driving a prototype car and and the the question marks of anything that could happen does happen in that, and
I mean, you are the stress test. Like you're the
Yeah.
guy who's responsible to like drive the living piss out of that car to make sure that like to know where its limits are at.
yeah, and you hear about these superstar test drivers, or you hear about with names on the side of the track of the test drivers who didn't make it around that lap,
Absolutely.
and you don't hear about everyone else in the middle.
But now that we know like what a test driver is, sort of the glory that's afforded to some, not all, particularly our story's hero, we know he was a test driver, but what did he test drive? Fucking everything.
Whoa!
He was tantamount, like, of every Toyota car that you like, that is cool, that I've talked about on this podcast, or if you're a Toyota head like myself, all of them that you like were driven and, like, given feedback on, and oftentimes, like, torn apart by Hiromu Naruse, and then screamed at engineers to be made better before it was released to the public. Just the quick little lineup that we have here. We have the Toyota Sports 800, that first little wannabe sports car that we talked about in my first episode and the TRD episode. We have the Toyota 2000 GT, the love child of the partnership between Toyota and Yamaha.
On the upper right?
On the upper right hand here, yes, the Toyota's first real sports car for the international market. In the middle here, we have the Toyota 7, Toyota's first like actual real race car. This V8 powered twin turbo like machine meant for
Fucking
SCCA
Batman
races.
car.
That's like just it looks like a Pinewood Derby fucking car. It's not a car meant to like look or be anything. It's just a car meant to go vroom vroom, go fast.
It's just, somebody couldn't get out of their blocky phase of aerodynamics quite yet.
Nope, not at
Yeah.
all. And I mean, it's just one giant wedge. That thing is aerodynamic as fuck.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. We have Kaiichi Tsuchiya's, first and like only love in a car, the AE86 Corolla.
Love it.
The car that started drifting. This was test driven. It was given feedback by. It was known that working for or with Hiromu Naruse, kind of a brutal fucking experience. He had a relentless work ethic, and at the test track next to like the Toyota headquarters in the Aichi prefecture, there was test tracks, and there was a tiny little shed where the mechanics and the engineers and the test drivers would like stop and work on the cars. And Hiromu Naruse was known for like constantly pulling the car into the shed during sweltering Japanese summers. It's like 90 fucking degrees out. You're in a tiny little shed with a bunch of dudes in like a mechanic's jumpsuit. The car's hot as fuck because Naruse just
Hot car, hot shed. You're looking at like 120, 130 degrees, like before you're even next to the car.
You're sweating bullets, and you're sitting there expected to take notes while Naruse's starting to take the fucking car apart while it's still like hot from the track. Like it was said, like the brake rotors were still glowing as he was taking them apart to like show how suspension components could be improved, improve the handling of the car. Kind of a bit of a dick. He was definitely a zealot at the altar of like Toyota's philosophy of like building ever better cars.
Well, he got a dream job. He got to drive the piss out of whatever they threw his way. So.
Absolutely. We can see here, but like his fingerprint is all over Toyota Performance. These last two pictures here, I kind of left off because we covered individual cars, but like this picture here is every generation of the Toyota Celica.
Down
like,
in the bottom middle.
Bottom middle here,
Yeah.
yes. So every single Toyota Celica,
Like all the eras?
all of the eras, every single one of them was like pre-approved through Naruse-san's like test driving. And because the Celica is the parent car of the Supra, every Supra was like test driven and approved by Hiromu Naruse. Like when it comes to Toyota Performance, when we talked about Toyota racing development,
Yeah.
and what we'll talk about sort of the development of Toyota racing into the future, like this man's fingerprints is all over. There may not be a more important person to the Toyota Motor Corporation whose last name isn't Toyota.
Okay.
Interesting. So like a secret sensei. We're in season 5 of learning about Toyota. We find out that there's been this shadow person the entire time shaping the way. All these stories we've heard
Seasons
about.
1 through 4 are like the people on the production line being like, man, they're going through all the basics to make sure every single part is good. And then you finally get to this and you find out there's also a human element at the end of the machine that's trying to break the product. And
There's been 3 generations that we've talked about of the Toyota family.
Yeah.
3 of whom who are a part of the Toyota Motor Corporation. He's worked for 2 of them. He barely missed Kaiichiro Toyota, like the founder of the Toyota Motor Corporation. He worked.
Spending too much time playing with an abacus, going to abacus school.
He started under cousin Aichi before Shoichiro took over in the 80s. But yeah, so there is no greater individual person as well. Like there have been designers, there are the unsung heroes of each and every one of these cars and or generation of car. There was a lead designer. There was someone who had a vision for that vehicle to be made. But they also had to have this man drive the piss out of it and scream at them in a hot shed all about it before it got like the green light to start being made under the Toyota production system and sold around the world. And 2 of his philosophies that like really came into play for this is part of why he has that nickname of the man who knows all the world's roads was his philosophy of roads make cars.
Yeah.
He was a driver.
Yeah.
He was known for like after a long day of whipping a car around the test track, he'd go home, give his wife a kiss,
Clock in.
then get in a car and go drive in the mountains.
He loved driving.
What a
Well,
dork.
I mean, you know, everybody's got something they're passionate about, and he was passionate about driving.
You know, after a long day of podcasting, I like to go home, get my kids,
Give him a smooch.
get my wife, and start podcasting.
Precisely.
Oh yeah.
I actually honestly kind of feel somewhat bad for Mrs. Naruse-san.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like, I don't know. I can't speak to their personal life. I didn't really read much about it.
They could have been the happiest couple. They could have been the most miserable.
I know like one other thing about this woman that I'll bring up later in the podcast.
Oh my god.
But I imagine she didn't probably see a lot of her husband by the sounds of it. This man was a workaholic and loved driving.
It's just her.
And I know we've only seen one photo of this guy, but I'm imagining
He's still
like,
wrinkled and white haired.
he's a heater. He rips heaters, right? He's in
he's
that
smoking.
sweatshop.
I mean, this guy was a
just ripping
Japanese
heaters
test
in his
driver from
mechanic
the
outfit.
60s. So yeah, I'm sure he rips heaters. I'm sure he's fucking pulling lung darts. I'm sure that also added to the fucking heat of that little fucking shed when he's just screaming at people, tearing apart like glowing hot car parts. It's very interesting though, because I don't know, because of his second philosophy, which is actually like one of the few parts of like the Toyota like manufacturing philosophy that isn't associated with someone whose last name is Toyota. Genshi Genbutsu, which just roughly translates to go see. Like Hiromu Naruse was like notorious for hating engineers who just would sit behind a desk all day. That's why he would call them out to his shed to scream at them. Like his idea was like, go find out for yourself. Like go look at the car, go touch the car, go work on the car, go drive the car. You'll understand the car better, and then you'll make a better car because of that. And that philosophy, like, continues to live on. Like I said, it's one of like the few TPS philosophies that like wasn't made by someone with their name on the fuck. And I mean, it's a continuation of the philosophy we talked about in the Toyota War episode. This is spoiler alert, or not even spoiler alert, or just like, hey, I'm pulling back the curtain here. This is sort of the cumulative episode about Toyota shit I've been working for a long time.
Oh,
and where I'm trying to tie a lot of shit like
this is a season
together.
finale of the Toyota stuff.
Not really. I'm gonna keep talking about Toyotas.
Yeah,
You can't,
not a series finale.
you can't hold these gators to the ground when it comes to talking to them about Toyotas.
No.
But this is where I've had the vision in my mind to like thread a lot of these things together.
So I mean, you know, I'll try to ask questions and bring stuff up.
I'll also try and pause and take a breath in.
Because it's been a while. I was there. It's been a while since I had those conversations.
But yeah, so and of all the roads that Naruse drove that he learned, because a road teaches you about a car's capabilities. Like a bumpy road will teach you more about a car's suspension and handling than a smooth road. So you have to try it on all roads to learn about the vehicle. A road that he fell in love with would be the Grüne Hole.
Where is this in Germany?
This is in Germany, Ryan. You're absolutely correct.
So this is in Texas. This is a dance hall in New Braunfels.
Welcome
Texas.
to the Grun Hole.
It's actually pronounced Green Hall. It's pronounced Green Hall. They made fun of me when I moved down here. Yeah, it's pronounced Green Hall. It's one of the oldest dance halls in Texas.
Oh, okay.
You were one letter off in your translation, Zach. Yeah.
Really?
The Grüne Hole is a German translation of a nickname that this racetrack has, known as Green Hell.
Oh.
Green Hell.
Yes.
Oh.
So this is the Nürburgring. And it was built originally in 1925 as a jobs program. And also
they just built a big circular racetrack?
Well, no, they built a big old huge racetrack in the middle outside the Black Forest in Germany. Because remember, it's 1925. Remember, how was Germany's economy back then?
Not great. So you gotta bring that industry back.
Some way, somehow. Also, too, they're like Europe in like the we're not that far off from the advent of autosport, or as the Germans would call it, Rennsport. Like people are still just mostly doing races, sanctioned and unsanctioned, on public roads, which is incredibly fucking dangerous. Because you never know when, like, someone's going to be in the road doing, like, I don't know, a street hockey game, or grandma's backing out of her driveway when you gotta...
Oh, we can't race on public roads now? What? What's next? I can't drink my Stein while I'm driving too?
No.
God.
Germany has some of these, like, you get one DUI in Germany, you lose your license for life.
Oh, damn.
They have some of the harshest fucking like DUI laws in the world. The Germans, like, that's why they do that. They build shit like the fucking Nürburgring for you to go drive like a fucking asshole, and you're expected to drive on the Autobahn, their road where you can drive as fast as you fucking want. But you're doing it incredibly responsibly, and if you ever get caught doing anything irresponsible, you're fucked. It's also incredibly...
Am I reading this right? Am I seeing one term that is labeled Yokohama?
Yeah, I was going to ask about Yokohama 5 because I don't remember that city in Evangelion.
Yeah, well, it's just, I don't know, the tire manufacturer inevitably got its nickname for, I believe it's actually Yokohama S, because there's sort of an S shape in this part of the track.
Oh, it's like the Ren Ness curves, but that's the Yokohama section of...
It is the Ren Ness curves of the Black Forest in Germany. But let's get to how this fucking came to be. So 1925, Germany economy really in the shitter. They kind of need a...
Why? What happened?
Well, they started a proxy of theirs, a buddy of theirs named Austria.
See, a fight broke out adjacently.
So the Ottoman Empire.
So there was a big old fight, and they lost. And then, have you ever been in a bar fight that you lost, and then you had to pay for all the damage that was done to the bar, and also pay for everyone who you fought in the bar fight, like a restitution check? That's what happened to Germany. Not saying what they did after all the fact, even after this was good.
It's not justified because of that,
But that's part of the reason why they're like, hey,
So their economy is bad, and they're like, you know what? Let's just lay some pavement down in something of a circle.
Basically, not really a circle.
Money. Step 1, get pavement. Step 2, Black Forest. Step 3, question mark.
Step 3, throw a bunch of
Step
cars
4,
on
dollar
it.
signs.
And this is honestly, it was one man's fucking pipe dream. Dr. Otto Cruz was just a...
Never give up on your dreams,
Just a
kids.
German guy
Never.
who had this idea of like, we will build the biggest wrecking racetrack in the world. And then it will create the jobs, and the jobs will spend the money, and it will improve our economy, and we'll have the biggest racetrack in the world. I am the Walter Disney of 1920s Germany.
And somebody's going to be like, but sir, will it be a big circle? And it's like, no. 9. More curves than you can count.
It will have over 73 turns. It'll have more than 27 turns.
And we'll take the most treacherous.
But sir, will it be smooth and be like not hilly and flat land? 9 hills everywhere.
It will have an elevation change of over 1,000 or 333 meters.
Really?
Yeah, there's over 100.
Like it goes up and down a hill and some
There's
area,
over
or it's a
1,000
valley
feet
in
of
there?
elevation change on this racetrack alone.
This sound. I mean, okay. I mean, I was gonna make fun of the green hell if it was just like, look at. I mean, from the picture that you have, it's like, it doesn't look too bad, but that sounds terrible. I'm not a race person, but it's just like, no.
This picture here.
This is the nice part.
This is after they've made a absolute shitload of safety improvements to the green hell.
Yeah, I forget this is in the 20s, so it's...
Yeah. It wasn't even all that safe until, like, the fucking 80s. It got the nickname the Green Hell in 1968 when Sir Jackie Stewart, a British racer, had won the German Grand Prix. That was his description of winning the 24-hour at Nürburgring. There's the 24 hours of Le Mans in France, which is sort of a like endurance race. There's also 24 hours of the Nürburgring or the Nürburgring Grand Prix. This man won it, and he described it like, hey, how was it? Like, it was a hell. And everything was green because it's in the middle of a forest. I fucking hated it.
You said this is in Nuremberg?
It is near it is in the town or outside of the town of Nuremberg, Germany, yes.
And just to get...
that is interesting.
Yeah. They're great with their trials and also their racing.
Yeah.
But
And they were doing the racing before the trials.
They were doing a lot of race stuff before the
quick question,
trials.
because it is hard for me. I mean, I know there's kilometer meter like markers in between that, but
Yeah.
are the yellow lines on this map, are those like actual highways?
So those are like arterial roads and roads that feature in and out in certain races. There's
Okay.
also even, if this is just the Nordschleife.
Oh.
There is a Südenschleife.
Those are behind the set hallways for cast members.
But yeah, so this is a the racetrack. There are two halves of it: the Nordschleife and the Südenschleife and the Zellschleife, which is a sort of intermediary that connects the two. Overall, it's over 17 miles long. The Nordschleife itself is 12.9 miles, so almost 13 of those, like 17.6 miles. And the Nordschleife itself has 73 turns, 1K of elevation gain and loss. And it is just known to be treacherous. It throws everything at you that a racetrack can throw at a car.
Okay.
And so by the time Nürmeister began to be sent out to test cars when they're working on Toyota Motorsports, he was part of like sort of the Japanese division of TRD. He was their guy, like, hey, we want our best driver behind the wheels of the cars that we're trying to put into performance sports. And so he got to go out and test some cars on European tracks, and he pretty much instantaneously fell in love with the Nürburgring. That it's like the ideal road to like put a car through its paces. You have like there are like it's a track that was built at this point over a century ago. There are like humps in it. They're like throughout, I want to say this portion. There's like humps where like if you're going too fast, your car's catching air. There's gnarly turns. There's almost no shoulder. They didn't put up these like guardrails and like cyclone fencing here until after like a bunch of people fucking died. Like on average in the 100 years that the Nürburgring has existed, roughly 12 people die a year.
Holy shit.
On this track. So once a month,
It requires
I've never
blood.
physically driven on the Nordschleife. I've been to Germany very briefly, mostly for layovers. But I've never been there. This actually is one of the cooler concepts of the Nürburgring. I'm actually kind of glad that we circled back around. This is also a German toll road. So you can, for a fee, drive your car there and drive it on the Nürburgring. And there's been a whole like tourist industry that's developed around that, where they'll rent you a car and insure the car in case you wreck it trying to race it around it. So it's not just like pro automakers and racers that happen here. There are times of the week and times of like the year and the season where you can just be any fucking schmuck who shows up in a car and drive.
You know, if baseball stadiums did that, if I could take batting practice at Safeco Field for like $50 an hour,
it'd be dope.
That would be so
right?
sick.
Yeah.
Even if you had to be in line with a bunch of other dudes, like you had to be in a lineup of 9 other
with a bunch of other 30-something dudes trying to live out their dreams.
And so this allows you to like not only like live out your dream of being like, hey, I've driven a car on a racetrack. You've driven your car on kind of the racetrack.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like it's a holy site for wrestling or wrestling for racing.
Car wrestling.
Yeah, for car wrestling.
Which is what racing is known as. It's car wrestling.
But no, it's a holy site for racing. Much like the mountain, the good old Drift Mountain.
Absolutely. I mean, there are several of those in Japan, but yes, Mount Hakone.
Yes.
Which also Nürmeister drove, not only Kaiichi Tsuchiya, but that was a favored mountain of Nürmeister as well. So great minds think alike when it comes to driving dangerous Japanese mountains at excessive speeds. But yeah, so there are even services where you can like taxi rent, where like a actual good driver will sit in the driver's seat and drive the track like a race car driver would, with you in the passenger seat.
You get a ride along?
Just so you can have the experience of what it's like to like actually go fast and good around the Nürburgring.
Wowza.
Money buys access, man.
It's
money buys access.
Yeah. It also like because automakers began to like flock to the Nürburgring, parts suppliers also came there. It helped like sort of revitalize and reshape the economy of like the local area to be around like this racetrack. Like,
Oh yeah.
because automakers needed like to figure out like how can they build the best performance cars in like the 60s and 70s, like Porsche, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, like they're all like showing up there to do the like their test races, and then inevitably the Italians show up, and then even after that, like the Americans and the Japanese show up to test their cars. So now it's become almost like a point of pride of like your new performance car sets a lap record at the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
Walter Roll like owns, I'd sort of tease this, but a lot of his records are in Porsches at the Nürburgring.
Gotcha.
To like set up like this is why we are the creme de la creme. The cream rises to the top in performance vehicles because our guy went and set a lap record on the Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say it's a boring track.
It is not. I've driven it in video games. Like
Yeah, I was gonna ask if
Forza,
this was like a Gran Turismo, like if it has that.
in Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo with my racing wheel and VR headset. It is truly like so fucking hard. It like to drive at speeds when I'm driving like I don't know the Toyota FRS concept or whatever, a Nissan GTR, Corvette Z8. It's insane. Like when you're using the racing wheel controller, a little bit easier, but VR headset and racing wheel, it scares the piss out of you. But our Naruse son had spent years trying to persuade Toyota of like, hey, we have our test tracks. I'm kind of bored with them. They're not all that challenging. I've been taking these cars up into the hills, beating the piss out of them. It's good and everything, but like, let me fucking take a car to the Nürburgring. Let me take it to the green hell. Let me put a car through its paces, where all of the best like automakers in the world in terms of performance sports car vehicles are doing that. And inevitably, he was given.
When was this? This was in the 30s, 40s?
No, this would be the 80s at this point.
It was made in like the 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was a jobs program in betwixt world wars to try and keep the Germans, I guess, have somewhat of a paycheck in a time where not many of them had a paycheck, and the people they were getting paychecks from were not good people. But anyway, so by the time the mid to late 80s rolled around, he didn't get to take it like for its initial run, but the A70 or Mark III Supra, the car after my heart, the car I will never stop bringing up, and the person who had this screenshot also, no, this is us. This is our Activate Windows logo. I got tricked. But no, the Mark III Supra, that was the car when they started developing the Turbo R concept, like the first concept for that they wanted to put into WRC, which was an 88, 2 years into the Mark III Supra's run. Hiromu Naruse finally got the go-ahead to take a car and take it to the Nürburgring. And not only did he do that, he assembled his team of test drivers. It was called the Naruse team. And they took on the Nürburgring with a lot more grueling set of circumstances than most other manufacturers took when they brought their car. Naruse had set the target that you would do one lap for every horsepower that the car had, like each driver, in order to sign off on it.
Holy shit!
And the Turbo R had like 250 horsepower.
So each of them individually in this team is
Yes.
doing 200 laps around this.
It takes at like speeds of exceeding like 120 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour. It takes over 10 minutes to get around the track. So you have to do that 200 some odd times to be able to be like, no, you've earned your seat time in this car at the Nordschleife. But his goal in doing so, his goal into like, no, you're going to drive the living piss out of this car and you're going to live in this fucking car for a couple days on this track, was to teach them not only like the track, but the car as well. Like if you do 250 laps around something in a car, like, and you don't crash it, like you probably like it starts to become second nature to you.
Yeah.
And
You've broken that horse, partner. You know how that horse
that's
rides.
Exactly.
a great analogy, Zach. Absolutely. You've finally broken that wild stallion in. And so rather than focusing on like, oh dear God, I have to hold on to this wild stallion underneath me, you can let your mind wander a little bit when you're driving your 167th lap around the track. Because
You
like
start focusing on your tertiary problems,
You're
that
starting to
things
think-
that could be fixed, tweaked with it.
you're starting to notice like, oh hey, the suspension is a little bit loose. We could tighten it here. We could tighten it there. And because of like Toyota's manufacturing philosophy of Kaizen, where like anyone in any step of the process, including test driving, has the ability to be like, hey, we should do this better. Like you're starting to get this valuable feedback from these people who have put in, hundreds of miles on the car in the most grueling conditions possible. And it focuses on that ever better cars philosophy.
I'm convinced our main guy just wanted to be a car. He just wanted to be a Transformers.
Naruse, he just wanted to be a car.
He just wanted to be a car.
He was a man who longed to be a car. And I will tell you what that car is. That car is the A80 Supra. I have highlighted, I don't have a picture of it right now. That was the Mark IV Supra. It's the one from the Fast and the Furious. I've brought it up 8,000 times on this podcast.
I'll throw an image up there.
Everyone knows what it fucking looks like, but because he proved with the A70 Supra that you can make a more performance like variant Supra, like the Mark III was the best Supra until the Mark IV came along, and the Mark IV was developed almost exclusively at the Nürburgring. Like, it didn't just get developed in the Aichi Prefecture near Toyota City at the test tracks. Like, they let him take that car after it had been engineered and designed and do all of the testing at the Nürburgring. And that's why that car ends up becoming, like, the fucking flagship car for Toyota Performance. Probably the most important, like, car Toyota had ever built.
I mean, it seems so simple, stupid, but I am somebody who's coming from the outside of racing, looking in on these kind of podcasts. But I assume if you can tackle this, if your car can make it through this, through testing, tweaking, more testing, tweaking, but you're doing it on this track, of course it's gonna perform when you put it on an oval or just,
Yeah. I mean, if it can
In theory.
drive here, it can drive anywhere.
Gotcha.
Sort of like New York.
It's the New York.
Before we move on,
Yes.
I know we've been on this slide a long time.
Yep, this is an important one.
What do they serve at the Devil's Diner?
At the Devil's Diner? That's just a fucking part of the track, man. They serve speed and death.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
That's not like you can go get fucking Wiener Schnitzel and Pommes frites.
I didn't think
and
I
some
knew
Spätzle.
it was an allegorical diner, Taylor. But at the same time, like,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
assume a lot of people died on what appears to be a straightaway.
at Bergwerk, they're not working on a mountain. That's just kind
They're
of
not working on my bergs.
They just call it that. It's that part of the track. I mean, we got some Arenberg, the Frühscholle.
We have
the
Tiergarten.
Tiergarten, the Garden of Tears.
For real.
It's like kindergarten, but everyone's upset. We've got Quitterbacher Hohe, which is known to be like a treacherous one of those little yumps where, like, if you're going too fucking fast, your car's going fucking flying, and you're gonna lose your shit on the fluke plots.
Okay, I mean, I don't mean to keep. I know you want to move on, but it's just so cool to have a racetrack that's so old that like every bump. Every imperfection that's been tried to be smoothed out, but it's like, oh no, it's still the Tiergarten.
Another treacherous part of the track is Dottinger Hohe. It's right, as you can see, one of the few places where the track starts to kind of straighten out. This is actually probably one of the parts of the track that like stands out the most to me as like a kid playing like Forza Motorsport when it first came out on the Xbox, or like Gran Turismo on the PlayStation, when these are real racetracks that are uploaded into these games. And like that corner, once you get past Dottinger Hohe, which I didn't know it was called that until like, I don't know, fucking a couple days ago. But that's like, it's one of the longest like straightaway in any of the tracks in those games. So like you can start to see like just how fast the car you have built has gone. So a lot of people have spent a lot of time on this track, digitally and in the real world. But But yeah, it was because of the work done at the Green Hell, at the Nuremberg with Naruse-san and the Naruse team. We were in sort of the golden era of Toyota. Like we had the Mark IV Supra, we had the MR2, we had the Celica ST205 that we talked about in our rally episode. Like all of these cars were developed off of the work that was done here. And then the millennium changes.
Whoa.
And we have
Oh,
a
God.
new millennium and a farewell to excitement. Boys, what would I tell you that the second...
Thank you so much for picking the beige
I know,
cars.
I love this. I love
going
this.
a full lineup of beige soccer
To be honest with you, boys,
cars.
it wasn't even all that hard to find these images. I didn't have to scour all that hard on Google Images to make sure I found all of these.
I'm pretty sure the Sienna only
You go
comes...
to any Walmart across this country and you'll see all 6 of those cars.
You made the world's easiest car bingo.
Yeah. But what if I told you, boys, the second most tragic crash of the early 2000s was the crash and excitement that Toyota expected? Yep. So as the Toyota shifts into the late 2000s, no more MR2, no more Toyota Supra. It's gone again. They had the RZ model, which
fun.
had made it all the way, I think, until like 2001-ish in Japan. And like the Toyota Celica, the legend of WRC, Toyota got banned in the mid 90s. They did one more generation of the car, which was okay.
Yeah.
But it died at this time period as well. And this is outside of their SUVs and trucks, Toyota, in the dawn of the new millennium. We have the most ubiquitous, low-level, white-collar worker commuter car, the Corolla. Mm-hmm. It's great, but it's now nearly 20 years removed from the last time it was exciting as the AE86 Trueno. We have the Sienna, the second iteration of Toyota's minivan, a follow-up to the Previa. This was supposed to be an exciting follow-up. We in the 70s and 80s got an version of the Toyota Hiace, which they continued to make in Japan, which is cool. And they made a lot of really cool variants of the Toyota Hiace, which are, if you're like a car weeb and about that van life, you probably know what I'm talking about. But no, we inevitably got the soccer mom mobile of the Previa, which was then followed by the Sienna, which is still exists to this day. I believe all of these cars still are in Toyota's lineup. We have your like ubiquitous grandma car, or family who has a frugal head of household car, the Toyota Camry. I had one.
Camry was like the lesser of the Corolla,
It's
right?
actually the bigger, more powerful Corolla. The Corolla only ever comes with an inline 4. The Camry comes with an optional, more powerful inline 4, or a V6 engine. So it can haul around your full family and take dad to his fucking code sorting job and data entry.
Back to abacus school.
At Initech in 1999 when they're worried about the Y2K virus. Also there is a stereotype of like Asian families. Yes, you go get the Camry. It's a sensible 4-door vehicle that will never fucking die on you. Mm-hmm. And me not coming from an immigrant family, not from Asia, we did end up with a Camry. And that ended up in my hands, and I took it to 346,000 miles before I popped its engine due to poor maintenance. But I delivered so many pizzas and smoked so much weed in a 19...
Is that the black one?
No,
that's the Dodge
That
Neon.
was my Neon,
That was
which
your Neon.
barely made it 6 months. I had the Camry, which made it like...
Forever.
I had that car for almost I had 9 years.
Yeah.
Barely maintained it the whole time. Just smoked weed, delivered pizzas, and drove the piss out of it. and it...
What a life lived.
It's still the car that I have with the most miles. Like my 400 and Prism are starting to creep up on it, but it's still gonna, with how much I drive now as a work from home guy, it's gonna take me at least another 5-6 years to catch up to my Camry, and I could still be arguably could still be on the road today if I was a better, smarter mechanic than I am now. Or no, flip that. So that thing down,
you're the
flip
man
it and
you are
reverse
today,
it.
yes,
If I was
yeah.
the mechanic I am now, then that car would
Yeah.
still be on the road.
Mhm.
We also have the upgraded Toyota Camry, the Avalon.
Oh my god, this
For-
is so boring.
For when your data entry dad gets a job to middle management, he goes out and upgrades that Camry to a fucking Avalon.
Yeah, the Avalon definitely is the car of the man that gets to yell at people, but also gets yelled at.
Someone's
Yes,
still
yes.
yelling at the Avalon driver. That's the person who's driving like the Porsche Boxster or the BMW.
Yeah.
You're middle management. You're not management if you're driving an Avalon.
You still get put in your
Yeah.
place, but you get to put people in their
But
place.
it comes.
Hey, buddy, it looks like I'm driving a Mercedes.
Mm-hmm. It comes with the V6. You don't have to deal with the poverty inline 4. You got money now a little bit. You're driving an Avalon. It's got the nicer interior. It's got some of the options. You got heated seats.
Yeah.
You know, you're living it. It's got maybe a better sound system. Then we have Toyota's.
Oh yeah, it's got the Bose
Toyota's-
system.
You
it's
got the one
stock
where
Bose
it's like
system.
that's the aunt who gets a DUI. That's what she's driving.
You're not wrong, honestly. Yeah, that's probably what the Solara is. They're like, hey, what
The
if
Solara is Aunt's getting a DUI with the top down. She has a margarita to go in the cup holder. It does not know why she's getting pulled over. Right
Aunt
now.
Rebecca's having had herself a midlife crisis. She just divorced Uncle Chris. She doesn't have the money to get a little Barbied out Corvette. She went and got a Toyota Solara because it's the Avalon with a convertible top.
Gotcha.
And it's got 2 doors instead of 4. It's still got all that
Oh my
Toyota
God.
reliability to it. But yeah, that is the fucking Solara. And then probably the car that most is eponymous of this incredibly boring era of vehicle, the Toyota Prius.
An unstoppable force. Am I
Yeah.
right? Is that joke dated? Unstoppable force.
Mhm. A car that had its
The
had
brakes?
its controversies. It
Couldn't stop for a hot minute.
Yes, in 2008, there was a major controversy because the Prius, due to its electronic throttle body, it was the first time like your gas pedal wasn't physically connected to the throttle body. And Toyota wasn't the only automaker doing this, but Toyota did have an issue where theirs would get stuck open. So even if you weren't using the throttle, the gas pedal, your car was just full throttle
You were
open. And you had to
Wow,
like
that sounds terrible.
slam the car into neutral, slam the brakes, and like rip the e-brake to get it to stop. So Toyota, they had the Prius, they had the throttle body, the electronic throttle body sticking issue, as well as Takata airbags. So if your car, suffered this throttle body issue and it just like went full speed into a guardrail, and then your airbag went off, these Takata airbags were known for having shrapnel in them. And so you just effectively had a grenade go off in your face instead of an airbag. So not a great time for
Kind of
Toyota.
insult to injury,
No.
huh?
But they did get past it. I mean, the Prius, for all of its, talk of it being a boring car, it is revolutionary in the fact that it was like the first car to market that showed you like, oh no, you can be super fuel economical. It started like the hypermiling fixation of like getting the most miles per gallon out of a vehicle that you possibly can. Was much to the chagrin of our hero of our story, Hiroma Naruse. I mean, he test drove and like he gave the
Did he take this
golden
thing?
seal for all these cars.
Do you take this to Green Hell?
No. No.
I mean, it's not worth it, but still, I'm curious.
He's not going to roll over a fucking Solara in the green hell and risk dying. Come on. But no, it was known at that time, he was kind of bristling. Like, he was 58 years old by the turn of the 2000. He's getting kind of close to retirement age. And, he's a guy who test drove and, like, had his fingerprints all over the most exciting era of Toyota, like, motorsport development and consumer production vehicles. And now they're just building this bland champagne beige
fucking
bullshit.
dishwater ass cars.
Fucking economy cars. With that, we'll move into part 2, boys. A slide you may remember.
Okay.
Wow, you brought back our boys.
All of our boys. We got Chad, Sakaichi Toyota, founder of Toyota Auto Loom Works. We got Brad, Kaiichiro Toyota, the visionary who created Toyota's, automotive wing and created the biggest automotive maker in the world. we got Thad, or Thaddeus, Shuichiro Toyota, who took over for his father, oversaw like things like the implementation of Lexus, things of that nature, and then we have his son, Tad. Akio Toyota.
And it's cool you got that photo of Tad when he won American Idol. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got to go to Hollywood that day, and he was really excited about it. But we're going to be focusing on of the ad quadrilogy.
Oh.
The,
Jumping
the
back
Toyota
in.
I've talked maybe the least about, purposefully, Tad. Akio Toyota, the now former president of Toyota and current director of the board of Toyota Motor Corporation.
Okay.
Director of the board is like one of those bullshit titles you just give to somebody who's collecting a paycheck, right? It's like, oh, he is the production manager of operations. Like, you don't clock in every day, right?
No, he's more important. He sits at like the top of like the group of people who own the company, actually like own like the company itself.
He was a chairman of the board?
He is chairman of the board,
Much like
Frank,
much like who?
Franklin Sinatra.
Oh no, I was gonna say Carrot Top in his movie. in his movie.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that's also a reference as well.
But the board was a surfboard.
Classic. That's good physical comedy, and that's what we go to Carrot Top.
And that's
for.
all we get from Carrot Top.
That and doing roids and singing new metal music. He's done a lot, actually.
Wow.
There was a tough decision when we went out to friend of the podcast bachelor party of like what comedy actor we're gonna see.
Was Carrot Top on the?
Carrot Top was like number 2 on the roster. We saw Piff the Magic.
How could you not?
It was really expensive. Like for half the price, we could go
Oh,
see
I
Piff
imagine.
the Magic Dragon, who's a comedic magician, and honestly, very entertaining show. I would recommend if you're
Comedic magicians undersold as far as comedians and magicians.
He's good at
like,
both.
That is a heck of a show.
For sure. So let's talk about good old Tad, aka also referenced our.
Oh wow, yeah.
Subconsciously I did, but no. Akio Toyota, the 4th Toyota in the line, the grandson of the founder of Toyota Motor Corporation.
Yeah.
Born May 3rd, 1956, in Nagoya, Japan. Probably the biggest city, sort of north of Tokyo, south of the Aichi Prefecture and Toyota City. Not a lot's known about his childhood. There's not a lot known about the
You
childhood.
assume maybe
Any-
comfy childhood.
I mean, yeah, you grow up the grandson of the founder of the largest automotive builder in the world, especially by the point like, I mean, 1956. By the 1970s, like Toyota, when he's a young man, like, yeah, no, they're doing well for themselves. Like, they've infected the world with the Land Cruiser strategy. They've made roads in the North American market. They are the biggest Japanese automotive company at the time. So, a guy who, he, after his childhood, he went and studied law at Keio University, which is the oldest Western-style university in Japan. Like,
damn.
even, like, kind of like pre-Edo period, when, like, Western nations first started to make contact with the Japanese islands. This was sort of one of the first sort of institutions of learning that they had set up under the Western style. So that's where he went and got like his bachelor's, and then he came to America and went to a place called Babson College in Massachusetts,
Funny.
which is one of the most insane schools. I'm so glad I clicked on the hyperlink in the Wikipedia article to like study this a little bit.
Yeah.
It was like originally started in 1919 at like someone's house as like a college for business that then became like a full-fledged university. But
Oh my gosh, it was a Ponzi scheme that got
they
traction.
kind of became legit. And like their whole thing is like, we will set you up for the corporate world. Like as a requirement when you go to class, like you have to be in a suit and tie, like you have to be dressed like an executive for your classes. You're expected to keep like an exacting calendar, like
Mm.
rather than a desk or just sort of like a desk in the like Coliseum style seating like you would have in a like university
Yes.
style setting. You have an actual desk with like a computer and a phone, like it would be like your desk in an office.
It's what you would imagine a cartoon business school would be, but it exists.
And you have like a secretary who's
What?
like keeping track of your shit while you're going to school. Like it's just like role play university for being big Mr. King of the Castle business guy.
Yeah, that's exactly what children imagine their parents go and do every day when they go to work.
Exactly. And he went and got his master's in finance. He got his bachelor's in law at Keio University. He went and got his master's in finance at Babson College, which sort of gives you like a sense of like how he was being groomed to be, you know, like he wasn't guaranteed that he would inevitably be president of Toyota Motor Corporation and then inevitably, you know, the chairman of the board, but he, I guess, got the best setup for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, no, I'm not trying to be devil's advocate and be like nepo-baby, but you know, at the same time, like, you're going to business school. It's not like we're reading on your history, however sparse, that like he really wanted to be a dancer.
Yeah.
He really, really wanted to be a dancer, but then his parents convinced him, no, you got to go to dress up business school.
Shuichiro was like, no, dancing is not what we do here. We build automobiles. We build robots.
Dad, I just want to dance.
No, that wasn't the case. Akio actually is a car enthusiast. He did
Yeah.
love cars. He went to school for business because, you know, that's what you do when your last name's Toyota. And now you're not building cars. You're the family that now runs the biggest car business in the world. So you're not going to go to, you know, ITT Tech and get ASE certified as a master Toyota technician mechanic. You're going to go learn how to run a multinational worldwide conglomeration automobile company. And
Impressive.
like 2 years after he graduated from Babson, he decided, he talked with his dad, Shoichiro. He's like, hey, I want to join the family business. I want to join Toyota. And his dad actually...
Well, father, it appears I know everything about business now. I'll be taking that
Daddy,
job.
can I bring my
sir.
own piss boy, or do I have to take one of their assistants?
Have you talked to my secretary? But no, his dad actually said, like, nah, don't fucking work for Toyota. I don't want you to.
The boss is a real jackass.
Well, kind of. He said, like, I don't really want, like, my managers. Like, nobody wants to be the boss of, like, the guy whose name is on the fucking building. Like, I don't want my management to have to deal with, like, being your boss. Because they're obviously going to coddle and cradle you. But regardless,
Facts.
in 1984, he does get his start.
Is there a hip word for that though? Like when you don't want your child to follow in your footsteps because like the nepotism or whatever, like that they'll be treated differently.
Anti-nepotism?
Is there
I
a
don't
term
know.
for that?
Anti-nepo? I don't know. We can coin it now. We have an exciting opportunity, boys. We're on the ground floor.
We're on the ground floor or something
But
here,
regardless, come 1984, Akio starts effectively at the bottom of the ranks of the management ladder at the Machimoto plant, which is also in the northern prefectures of Japan, outside of Toyota City. It's sort of a B plant, but there are cars that come out of there, like the Toyota RAV4 and the Toyota Prius.
Okay.
That come out of that plant inevitably, not necessarily under his tutelage. I mean, he started in marketing, then he got to production, and then inevitably management of product development. And then in 1998, he took a little stop in a place we call Fremont, California. And he was the executive vice president of the New United Motor Manufacturing Incorporated, aka NUMMI.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, right at the tail end of the NUMMI experiment, or like close to the end of the NUMMI experiment, like that's where he got his first like sort of executive role. He was executive vice president.
Oh, you finally got the big shoes.
At the tail end of the 90s, during the swan song of Geo, and what would inevitably become things like the E120 Corolla, the Pontiac Vibe, the Pontiac Solstice as well, things of that nature that all came out of New United Automotive Manufacturing right before the Great Recession, and then inevitably everyone's favorite Nazi taking over that plant for his stupid electric car company and his stupid fucking robot factory. I'm still not over it, everyone. But after he had proven himself, after he had done his time in his first executive role at good old Numi, at the place where everyone was
Where
like
dreams happen.
doing drugs, fucking hookers, and like sabotaging the cars, all but 20 years ago in the 70s, he got called up to the major leagues and he got brought back to Japan.
Nice.
And in 2000,
the prodigal son returns.
I mean, look at him. He's doing the Christ pose.
this is
that's exactly what Tony Stark did in the first Iron Man movie when all those bombs went off in Afghanistan.
kind of, yeah. You're not wrong. That is almost the exact pose. But yeah, so he then, it becomes obvious, like, he has the chops. He's been a part of a few major successes within TMC, Toyota Motor Corporation. He kind of gets it. He's a good manager. Like, people like him. He's making shit happen. So let's bring him home. Let's start developing him to assume the birthright that, is guaranteed him by that last name. And in 2000, he was brought in to be some executive of some bullshit, and he got his first seat on the board of directors. And then he was placed in part of a very important project, which is Gazoo.com.
Wait. Wait.
What am I looking at?
Yeah.
Like,
Is this an ATM gotcha pawn?
Kinda. Maybe. Not really.
Maybe you get money. Maybe we steal your money. Who knows?
I'll explain it what it is in a moment. I'll give you boys some time to
I wanted to
process.
make the joke. I want to make the joke of video poker, but I also don't want to guess. Like, I don't know. Was Kazoo like an eBay, like a pre-eBay? No.
Kind of.
Is this how you bought internet?
Yeah.
Kind of. Honestly, this was like if you were to sort of make a modern metaphor as to what this was, it was sort of like Facebook had a child with Amazon.
Gotcha.
So Gazoo, or Gazo, as it takes its name from, Gazo is Japanese for image or picture. They decided to put a little flair on it, add another O, and call it Gazoo. Was
As tech companies love taking the
Because
liberty
there's a
of
lot of animals out on the internet.
man, there's
It's the wild. It's a kazoo out there.
Yep. But it was the visual information system for Toyota. So what you're seeing mostly on like kind of the left-hand side of the screen and the right-hand side of the screen was in the days of like the early internet. The mid 90s is when Gazo got its start. And, not everyone has a computer in their home that they can connect to the internet about. So instead, you'll go to one of these terminals right
Oh my
here.
god, you'll go to the ATM machine of like,
These are more of like
order this part for me.
These are more like a kiosk, like a self-checkout at a grocery store.
Whoa.
Or like a kiosk like I work on in my job where you check yourself in for a medical appointment.
Yeah.
These are their visual information systems where you can go to the terminal. It's connected not directly to the entirety of the World Wide Web, but it's connected to like a Toyota network where you can find information about new cars that are coming out. You can find listings for used cars, like certified Toyota pre-owned cars. You can find information about like parts that you can order through one of these terminals.
What's the era that this is all coming out? Like
This
talking
is like
late-
mid-90s
Mid-90s?
to
Okay.
sort of early 2000s. It does eventually evolve from the terminals
Yeah, but the
to
fact that
the Angel Fire ass website over here.
yeah. It's and
I love that, especially this one on the far left has a basket on the bottom as if there is something you can tangibly take from this machine, like it delivers some sort of product.
No, I was gonna ask,
to a degree.
like, what do you send back your bro? Like, here's my air filter that broke, and then you put the box in there, and it spits out like a ticket that's
Through a
like,
pneumatic tube.
like, hey, come back. It's a fast pass.
Yeah.
Hey, come back like in 7 days.
Honestly, boys, maybe. I don't know. You can find information about Gazoo and in English websites, but if you want to find images, you got to go to websites that are in fucking kanji. And so my dumb cracker ass couldn't read anything about him. I just went there for the pictures. Like Akio, he's got his position on the board of directors. He's being groomed to inevitably, take his spot as a Toyota at the leadership of the company. And they give him like, hey, you're the youngest, you're the hottest, you're the coolest of the executive branch. You're the young upshot.
You're very cool, very sexy.
Figure out
we
this-
like how you run.
Figure out this fucking internet
the
shit.
Toyotas.
We've had these terminals around, and they do all right. People go there and they like make purchases and put in their information and get parts delivered, or they, find out about cars on them. But it's the 2000s now. We don't need a stupid fucking terminal all over the islands of Japan. We can just have a website. And so, Akio helped manage the website. That was his first sort of major project.
He had to get into IT to save his job. huh?
Kinda, yeah. And it was also around this time as well, in 2001 specifically, an eventful year for many reasons. But for the purposes of this story, we're not going to talk.
Yeah, the Arizona Diamondbacks won the World Series. That was pretty monumental.
huge.
They were only
I know,
a
and the
franchise for
Mariners-
like 5 years before
The
that.
Mariners got so many wins.
They run
The Mariners
a
had
record amount.
the most wins. You can search the entire universe for the entirety of time, and you will not find a baseball team that has won more games than the Seattle Mariners in 2001.
It's true.
Yeah.
With a couple Japanese guys helping lead the charge.
Zoolander came out and was one of the lowest grossing comedies.
Well, yeah, and then became a cult classic.
Yeah.
But also in 2001, Shoichiro Toyota had advised to his son Akio, hey, you should meet with Hiromo Naruse. I feel like that'll give you some insight into like the company from someone who's been here at this time for 38 years. Like someone who's been with the company for maybe one of the longest tenured employees.
Yeah.
And also one of the most important employees in terms of like feedback on the cars. So his father said like, hey, you should have a meeting with Hiromo. And Akio follows his father's advice. And there is a meeting. And it's known from multiple sort of business executives that were at the meeting. Naruse, who at this time was like either contemplating retiring or
And
maybe
he's your
going.
test driver guy, right?
Yes, he is our test driver. He is our man who helped take Toyota to the Nürburgring and make the exciting.
Holy shit! Is this going to be a buddy cop movie
Yeah.
where we talk about the guy of the?
Is this where we have Luke Skywalker meet Han Solo and maybe they decide they're best friends?
Are you about to paint the scene of a cantina with a music called Jizz playing in the background?
Not quite yet. But no, so that first meeting wasn't immediately it wasn't immediately a bromance. According to everyone who was at the meeting, Naruse, after introductions, effectively screamed at Akio, I don't want to be preached at about cars by someone who doesn't know how to drive.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, nepotism allegations are coming back.
He
Okay,
hits him-
you don't get to have that kind of attitude.
I like that
against the working man.
Somebody's calling it out at least.
He immediately goes up to the fucking boss's grandson,
Uh-huh.
the man with the name on the building, and said, "Hey, fuck you! You don't know how to drive fucking cars, and I don't want to hear about cars from your bitch ass who went to school where you had a secretary sitting next to you at your fucking desk taking your messages."
When you were studying the money, I was studying the road.
Well, I was studying the blade, which is the road. While you were off playing golf, a hobby that I fucking despise, Naruse hated golf, and that was actually one thing he definitely disliked about Akio, because Akio picked it up in business school and then continued to develop it during his time like in America
He had to
running
keep up
Numi.
business appearances. He had to play golf every now and then.
And like that to Naruse was like, that's just that you're wasting time hitting a little fucking ball around a yard when you could be driving cars.
I love how this origin is starting.
I love.
They hated each other to start. They were worst of enemies.
It was then said, like, after Naruse went and mogged or like cucked Akio by saying like, you don't know how to fucking drive a car, son. He then offered / threatened Akio, I'll teach you how to drive.
Whoa. He sunned him?
He did.
He grabbed him by the shoulder and said, son, I'll teach you how to ride this bike.
Holy shit.
And maybe one of the smartest moves that Akio Toyoda ever made during his tenure within the Toyota Motor Corporation was saying yes to that offer.
That's crazy. That takes a lot of pride, like to swallow a lot of pride. It's, I mean, okay, nepotism allegations are going down. It's somebody that can say yes to an opportunity like that to learn rather than to have their pride tell them, no, fuck this guy for motherfucking me.
You've just come back to Japan to like effectively be the next the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
You're the next John Cena.
But I also like this test driver totally just having the chutzpah, dealing with a person much like he deals with the cars, and that's just I'm just gonna break it down. I'm gonna let you know what the fucking problem is and how I can fix it.
I'm gonna take you to a hot shed and scream at you like I've done to our engineers for 40 fucking years.
Yeah.
Effectively, yes, that is what he did. But Akio had, in his reflections, he said, yes, at the time I was a appreciator of cars, but I realized like I didn't have like the technical knowledge of someone like Naruse-san. And like knowing that the places that I wanted to go within the family business, I realized like I was given an opportunity here to like truly understand cars. Like I understood business. I was sent to business, like school for business. But this was like an opportunity to go to third college for you know, making good cars.
The streets.
Yeah.
Learning in the street.
And so they began their training program. He effectively became an apprentice to Toyota's master driver, which was an official position that Hiromu Naruse, that was his title at the time. He was master driver at Toyota. Of like, you know, he is the one who signs off on a car when he has driven it and deemed it acceptable to like be sold to the public. And so Akio joins, and they spend their time initially driving in the mountains, and Naruse takes Akio to the Nürburgring, the green hell. He gets to learn.
That's so cute. He's like, can I show you my special secret place?
Yeah.
Can I show you the secret track where I come and all my dreams come true? All the bad thoughts go away here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the movie version of this, you have your montage where they're going around, like you have alternating between who's in the driver's seat and who's in the passenger seat as they're going around different tracks, and then finally, like the music cuts out, and it's just like, I think you're ready.
Kind of, yeah. Like,
you're ready to go off to it. It's just like whatever was this was in West Germany, I assume.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
well, no, the Cold War's over. Like by like a decade plus at this point.
No. My brain just immediately went to, but where was this racetrack during the Cold War?
It was in West Germany. You're right.
Okay.
But East Germany doesn't exist anymore.
Sorry.
But no, and Toyota executives fucking hated this. They really didn't like the fact that the guy who is effectively the next guy in line to run the company is being taught how to drive cars dangerously. And like Naruse did not pull any punches. They did braking drills. He took him up into the mountains to do Kaiichi Tsushiya drift shit.
He shot guns at him.
He took him to the mountains
and threw him off of cliffs.
Yeah, if you could dodge a wrench, you can drive a car. He took him on like icy roads to teach him how to like counter steer and like drift and like control a car when it has lost its control. He was teaching him how to be like a race car driver. This is the absolute buddy comedy, like senpai, kohai like teacher student.
Each
big brother,
episode,
little
they have to
brother.
do some more fucking outrageous shit. They're drifting on ice this one.
Yeah, and by the time they finally made it to the Nürburgring, they needed something to drive.
Yeah.
Well, we've already figured out what Toyota's making nowadays.
Cars.
Well, yes, but what kind of cars, Ryan?
Whoa, what? When?
Priuses?
Yeah, they're making boring ass fucking commuters.
Yeah.
They don't have a performance model at this point in time. Like the MRS, the final iteration of the MR2, has wound down its fucking run. They made the Toyota Altezza, but that was pretty much on its way out. The Celica was gone.
Mhm.
And Hiromu Naruse had a preferred car, the Mark IV Supra, a car that they had stopped making like 8 years ago.
Oh. So
And so they're on.
So his division is kind of getting shut down, right? Like the high performance division of his test driving and everything. It's like he's going to getting pushed out because there's no need for him to be doing endurance tests on these cars.
I mean,
right?
he's still master driver. He still signs off on the Corollas, the Camrys, the Avalons, the Solaras, the Siennas, the Priuses.
But he's jobbing now. He's not. There's no thrill left,
No.
right?
This is sort of his last little fucking Hail Mary. Either he's gonna like teach the guy who's gonna be the next CEO of the company how to fucking drive fast and make cool, sexy, hot, nasty, badass cars that he likes to drive, or he's gonna fucking hang him up and finally go spend a night and have dinner with his wife for maybe the first time in their 50-year marriage. One of the
Honey,
two things are
tonight-
gonna happen.
Tonight I'm putting the keys on the hook. We're not driving.
coming home to his 50-year-old son, still playing with a train set.
But no, so Hiromu's favorite car, his car of choice to teach Akio, Toyota-san, how to drive at the Green Hell was the car that he helped develop there, the Mark IV Supra, a car that has been discontinued for a long time. And so Toyota is there, represented by Naruse and Toyota-san. And this is the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Like everyone's bringing the car that they're going to be selling in the next 2 to 5 years
Okay.
there to be testing. Toyota is the only company there driving a used car. This is something that like Toyota-san reflects on
Cool.
and bemoans.
That's so cool.
They're like, he talks about this in interviews of like, no, like everyone's there with their prototypes that they're going to be out to the public. We're the only ones there in a used fucking Supra that we had to go source because Toyota didn't support this hobby whatsoever. So we're spending our own money to buy these Supras to like for me to learn how to become a race car driver at the Nürburgring and up in like the northern prefectures of Japan and up in Hokkaido doing mountain driving. But this bond proved incredibly useful between the two of them. Toyota learned how cars feel. Like he learned the philosophies of Genshi Genbutsu, go and see. He learned the philosophies of that roads make cars. And for Naruse-san, like he finally had someone who like he had the guy in his back pocket. Like that's his bro. The dude is gonna be like in charge of the whole show is his buddy. And he has a vision of like, let's stop making dumb, boring bullshit into the future. And so a beautiful friendship is formed. And we move on to our next slide. Click and spin. Gazoo.com Racing.
Zoo.com racing?
Oh.
So
Okay.
Gazoo Racing is a name nowadays that is synonymous with Toyota Performance.
Oh.
That's not quite what this is. In 2007, the boys, as I will refer to them now, start a non-sanctioned racing team. Akio's drinking the Kool-Aid that Naruse's mixing up in the kitchen. He gets it now. He's like, no, like, you gotta, like, make fun performance cars and then race them to learn what their limits are. And then that still will come and play with the Priuses, the Corollas,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Camrys, the
It's
Siennas.
Always something to learn and to develop and grow.
It's the same lesson his grandfather pontificated on in 1952 when he said, like, we engage in automotive racing not to win races, but to learn about automobiles and make ever better cars.
This is a crazy story.
Yeah.
That you have this third-party gentleman reestablishing the fire that has been burning inside of this family, but has been kind of gotten lost due to the business sense
Absolutely.
of the company. And so now you have, wow.
And a
impressive.
wise old racer teaching him the tricks the entire way.
But yeah, so they comprise the Gazoo.com racing team to inevitably become Gazoo Racing, out of mechanics, engineers, people who work on the production line who maybe show a bit of promise. Nobody is a race car driver other than maybe Naruse-san, who hasn't really been a race. He's a test driver. And Akio, who, has just been trained by Naruse-san. So no one's is actually really like a full-fledged, like, pedigreed race car driver. But they're going to form a racing
These are hobbyists
team.
then.
Yeah, exactly. But Toyota, once again, do not like this hobby. The other part I know about Naruse's wife is every time they would go out to go teach Akio Toyota a racing lesson, she'd always say, please protect the president of the company. Please do not be the man. That's end quote. Please protect the president. But please do not be the man who gets the next CEO of the biggest car company in the world killed doing this thing you like to do, which is driving crazy. But yeah, so they decide that they want to form a team. They want to start sort of evangelizing the cult of no more boring cars.
This is where does TRD land in this time frame?
They're still running. TRD, this is not very long after Iron Man. Ivan Stewart has had his success in the Baja races. Toyota's now beginning to race in NASCAR at this period of time under the TRD nameplate.
So just to clear my mind up, the Toyota objection was just that their CEO, that their golden goose brainchild was getting in the car with their stuntman or their test driver.
Yeah.
Not so much racing was their objection. It was this specific
they didn't want
situation
that guy
that was
driving on frozen roads learning how to counter steer. And also Naruse also taught him here's how you get out of a car when you flip it over, a lesson that actually would become invaluable.
Here's how you shoot guns out of the driver's side window and while flipping a bitch and driving in reverse.
Here's how you have
James
6
Bond
beers
and
get home without a DUI. Lessons like that. But yeah, now that Akio is now moved up, he's now executive vice president of Toyota. He's one fucking rung removed from president of the company at this point in time.
I was still gonna ask, this man's got a company to run as well, and as he's moving higher and higher, the more I'm like, man, I know he's the vice president. There's only who's gonna tell him nah.
He's not that far removed from his time as president of Toyota.
Yeah.
A few years away at this point in time. So as Akio continues to climb the ladder and obtain his spot as a Toyota at the top of the company, people are even less excited about the prospect of him racing cars, which is not a safe hobby to have whatsoever. So they decide you know what, we're gonna make a team and we're gonna go racing, and we're gonna go racing at the Nürburgring, that super dangerous, super track, because that'll teach engineers and the people who work on and build these cars and design these cars how to make better cars. It's that Genshi Genbutsu philosophy of Hiroma Naruse in action. Go and see. Go and sit in the car. You're going to be driving a 24-hour race at the Nürburgring. You're going to be sitting in the seat. You're going to be peeing in the seat because you're driving for 4 hours straight. And you had to overhydrate to deal with the body heat that you're going to generate in a race suit. So you're peeing in the seat, and then you're going to get into the seat after the guy who peed the seat, and you're gonna pee the seat, and we're all gonna pee the seat, and we're all gonna run this fucking race. And you know what we're not gonna do?
And you got piss and shit in your pants. You still got to make it around the moon.
And you know what our focus is doing? It's on learning. It's not on winning.
Yeah.
He didn't want to like enter this team. He didn't start this team to be like, oh no, we're gonna go win the 24 hours of Nürburgring in 2007. We need to go learn. We need to take these nerds out from their desk, from their computers, get them away from their waifu screensavers and their fucking inappropriate mouse pads, and we're gonna get them behind the wheel of a car to make a better fucking car.
Wasn't that also the philosophy on that Australian race?
Yes.
We talked about, I think, last episode, that they went in feeling like, we're just here to test the limits of this car and to see if we can.
Yes.
And then they ended up walking away with like third or second or something like that.
They ended up taking, I believe it was like 19th out of the race.
Same thing.
And
Same thing.
Boys, let me tell you, being non-sanctioned by Toyota, they don't get to like get a car. They don't get, you know, a Celica or one of those NASCAR ass Camrys.
it's all out of their pocketbooks.
They had to go buy 2 used Toyota Altezas, which we can see right here in this picture.
Altez.
The Toyota Alteza is a car that is known here in the United States as the first generation Lexus IS.
Oh, okay.
We did get this car here in America. It just had a different name because Lexus doesn't really exist in Japan. Just like Acura doesn't exist in Japan, Infiniti also doesn't exist in Japan.
All the other brands.
They're
Just another dumb marketing ploy to sell to these crackers.
Exactly. We got
and it works.
And it works every time.
Every time.
I would love a Lexus IS. I keep my eye on prices of them because they are cool cars. They have a super engine in them. They got the same fucking engine the Mark IV Super has in it. It's just not turbocharged, and it probably doesn't have a manual transmission, and it's not as cool whatsoever. But they still went and they bought these cars because they knew how to work on them. They knew what they were. And they wore the Gazoo.com livery because you don't get to wear TRD livery when you are not a sanctioned race team.
Like, I guess this raises the question, and photos can all be different, but like, but they're still allowed to wear like Toyota race suits, jumpsuits.
I mean, yes.
like a fuck you, I'm vice president of the company, I can do what I want. But, you know, fine, we won't have it on the car. We're not sanctioned by Toyota.
We're not rocking the TRD, the Toyota Racing Development livery. No, not at all. Effectively, it was like a private team, which does happen in racing all the time. You have weird, rich, eclectic people who are just like, I like racing cars. I'm going to start my own team and throw my money into this massive fucking pit that is owning a race team. That's kind of what Gazoo.com's racing team was. And boys, in that first race, they did not win. They learned. They followed Narusse's guidelines. Overall, the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, both of those cars took 104th and 110th, respectively 14th and 19th out of like the 23 cars in their class.
Okay.
So nothing crazy at all, but both cars finished. That's actually that's a bit of an achievement in and of itself, like being able to finish the race. And it was covered on Gazoo.com by our boy.
I would hope so.
Tad, aka Akio, aka Morizo. It was effectively covered. He had his own blog on Gazoo.com where he talked about like the cool shit that they were doing with this little non-sanctioned racing team. And because he was...
who's Morizo? You said Morizo really quiet, like looked at me like I'm supposed to know. Who's Morizo?
I did talk about this in the first episode well over a year ago at this point in time, so I don't expect anyone to remember it. But Morizo is a pseudonym for Akio Toyoda.
He had a pen name?
He has a pen name.
Is he a fucking Super Sentai hero? Like, he's like, oh no, it's not me, it's not Tad, today I'm Racer X.
So yeah,
me and my dog.
2 years later in 2009, Akio is officially president of Toyota Motor Corporation. 2 years after these races.
Yay, he did it.
And like during 2007, when they began racing, and he was still pumping out blogs because this is it's 2007.
Yeah.
We were all there. We were online. Blogs were the shit at the time.
I was blogging the shit.
We were all
out of
blogging
the internet.
And so Toyota needed a pseudonym or something to like separate him from because the company was so against this racing habit of his. He decided to adopt a pseudonym, that being Morizo, which he stole from these pictures here in the center.
It's an actual show that he stole the name from. I was thinking like that's the best cover if you're trying to hide the fact that it's a tape of racing.
Nah.
Some knockoff. We got Ghibli at home.
This
shit.
is not a really subtle ploopy or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's not as cool as that. In 2005, the World's Expo, which is like a big showcase of innovation and industry, was held in the Aichi Prefecture of Japan, which is the home of Toyota City, also the home of Toyota.
Yeah.
And because it's Japan, everything has to have a fucking mascot.
Yeah.
And so the mascot.
So they picked Indica and Sativa, huh?
Basically, yeah. You've got.
They are two nugs.
You've got Morizo.
They're my best buds.
And you got Kokoro. And they're both sentient shrubs.
Yep.
Whose entire purpose, so they're living and breathing and thinking shrubs, and their entire purpose within the canon of the universe is to promote eco-friendliness.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, man. It's just think about it.
Man, I don't speak for the trees, but they still listen.
I am a tree and I do speak, so
So
kinda.
does that make me sentient? Do I think therefore I am, bro?
And this is purely my conjecture on the situation. I believe Morizo is a aspirational title that Akio assigned himself. I believe when he was picking this name, he viewed himself more as Kokoro, the smaller shrub, and Naruse-san is Morizo. And he's the little guy looking to become the big guy, and that's why he picked it as his pen name. Also, there's ties to this is Aichi Prefecture. It's Toyota's home turf.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the pseudonym that he picked to race under. And it's sort of his alter ego.
What's up with this dog, though? I want to know what's up with this dog.
That's just a cute little dog.
Okay.
There's really nothing more than that. Even to this very day, Akio Toyota has these cute little cartoon versions of himself with a little dog. When he's writing an article or signing off on a blog post as Morizo. And that's just the little because it's Japan, everything's got to be cute and it's got to have a fucking mascot.
Yeah.
So that's Morizo, the non-shrub version, and the little dog cartoon with their enthusiasm for cars. But Akio, also describes Morizo as his invisibility cloak. When he is Morizo, he gets to throw off the business suit and the lineage that comes with being a Toyota.
Yeah.
And he just gets to be a driver. It's his way of throwing off of all the expectation that has been planted on him since the day of his birth, and through his corporate rise, and just be a guy who loves cars and gets to drive cars. Is how he views Morizo. It is the second half of Akio Toyota.
His bad boy side.
Absolutely. But yeah.
But there is humor in that. I mean, we all see the irony in that of everybody knows it's you.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something to be said.
Yeah.
There is something to be said of I'm right. I want to write the next great novel. Well, I'm not going to use my fucking name. We're just going to make up some good sounding name. And even though it's me, I'm still showing up to the book signings.
And at this point in the world, if you're an automotive enthusiast, but outside of Japan, and you're reading these blog posts on Gazoo.com, you may not know that Morizo is Akio Toyota. If you're a European automotive enthusiast or an American automotive enthusiast, it's just this guy who signs off as Morizo, which Google image search barely exists at the time, and you're just getting a picture of a fucking
no.
shrub
You're-
if you try and search it.
What the
Okay.
hell do these two things have in common?
This is true. I was looking at this smoke screen in like a 2024 lens when still like.
This is a mid 2000s.
But also the point is to put on a kid's Batman cape and be like, "Yep, I'm gonna go solve crime today. I need this. I'm gonna put on this fake name and I'm gonna go and race."
Absolutely. So
Well, even I look at it through my profession of like an artist's name.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that being put into a different kind of craft, like driving, where you put on a different identity. Everyone knows it's you. You're just like doing it under a different identity, a different pretense, and it makes you feel more confident for whatever you're doing. To see that being put into a racer and their performance, it's inspiring.
it's a different signature that he puts on the paintings
Yeah.
that is the rubber he lays on the ground. Yeah. So with that, we will move into our next section here. Our last part 3, which I've just titled GRMN, which will make more sense later on.
Get ready,
I'm-
midnight.
Well, we know what GR
Mission.
stands for now, boys, don't we?
I-
Gazoo Racing.
Grand Remizo.
uh-huh.
And here you have the hierarchy.
Geraldo
of
Rivera.
Yeah, exactly. You have Geraldo Rivera parts. You have the Geraldo Rivera sports models. You have the straight up, just good old fashioned
the
Geraldo
occasional-
Rivera.
And you got to
That
make sure
sounds
that
like an
you,
H.
you don't eat a whole lot of Geraldo Rivera, Minnesota. You you can't.
Exactly. God damn it, you spoiled it, Ryan. I fucking hate you, boys. That's exactly what it is, and trust me, that'll be the case in a few slides. But no, this
I
is.
thought it was Geraldo Rivera Mountain.
Oh, it is the top of it.
But our boy Morizo, he's the guy now, and TRD exists, but also now you have this. Once was unsanctioned, but what happens when the unsanctioned racing division of the company is
The bad boys?
their primary driver is now the fucking CEO of the company.
He had
Yeah.
to go legit. He had to put the tie back on.
Gets a little
for realskies.
legitimized, and he
Yeah.
brings the boys up with him. Like everyone's coming up. And Gazoo
What
Racing
does happen when Dom starts working for for you know?
Yeah.
What happens to
Precisely.
the whole crew?
Yeah. No, they get the house back
happens
in LA.
To the
and,
family.
Kurt Russell starts working with you. What else?
Yeah.
And then like your friend who is also a beefcake starts doing a movie with Jason Statham that you didn't know about and you hate him for it. And you have clauses in your contract that nobody can win a fight. They can't lose a fight. They can only win or tie. But no, like we'll discuss the hierarchy here, but this is sort of like we now have a new TRD. We have a secondary division in Toyota Motorsport. We got Gazoo Racing. Like it went from unsanctioned under a pseudonym to like, yeah, that motherfucker's in charge of the whole show now, and this is the company he came up with.
And his dumbass little named racing department is coming with him.
And-
It doesn't help if you are an outside observer, if you are, say, in the department of TRD, and suddenly this guy's your president. A person you may think is a nepo-baby, and suddenly he comes in, and now we have a whole other racing department to deal with.
And I talked about in our first episode how there became a division between the two racing Toyota
Okay.
racing divisions. And we see that now reflected in TRD is very much so truck-based. Truck and SUV-based. Your top-line Sequoias, Tundras, 4Runners, and Tacomas, they're TRD models. Your top Supras, 86s, Corollas, all these like sports car models, they're Gazoo Racing. They're GR. They wear that badge. So there is inevitably a division between the two. They both still live on, even to this day in their lineage. But yeah, that is an outcome of, Morizo becoming CEO of the company. And a big part of, the uprise of Gazoo Racing.
Whoa, is that what the M and N mean? Nürmeister and Morizo?
That's the title of this
GR.
fucking episode, boys. Not quite yet. I'll explain GRMN. at a certain point in time.
Aww.
But I just wanted to cover,
Yeah.
we talked about it a little bit, but like truly, like, Akio in 2009, he's the guy running the show, and the guy that like had taken him under his wing to teach him about cars when, everyone didn't want to be interacting with the boss's son. This guy
Yeah.
who came up and threatened to teach him how to drive has been with him the entirety of the time that he has been back in Japan and climbing the corporate ladder. And so you have Nürmeister and Morizo. And I haven't covered the first part of that. Nürmeister, master of the Nürburgring, which was a nickname given to Hiromu Naruse by the Ferrari racing team.
Oh, so by a different racing team?
The guys at Ferrari,
Yeah.
the company that just makes race cars,
Mhm.
looked at this Japanese man who had, at this point in time, had done more seat time and more laps around the Nürburgring than any other Japanese driver in history, and said, "That's the man who is the master of this race course."
Yeah.
And they also, other race teams along with Ferrari had given him the nickname of Part 1, the man who knows all the world's roads. Because of his enthusiasm for driving and his just like, if he's not in the seat for like work, he's in the seat for pleasure. He's learning the roads of the world.
He's even the kind of man you sit him down in a board meeting and he starts just scooting on the computer chair, making laps around the table. He's always racing.
Yeah, he probably had ADHD that was undiagnosed.
Yeah, there's modern medication to stop whatever that guy
And
was
it would
doing.
have
But
stopped us from having the Nürmeister, or the man
Yeah.
who knows all the world's roads. Yeah.
these are fun photos.
Yeah, no.
They
Like
are.
we've established a great relationship that these two dudes have had, but to now see there's a payoff of photos of them doing it and to show just exactly what we've been talking about, what you've been narrating.
There's the
Pretty
boys
cool.
standing next to the Mark IV Supra, one of the ones they sourced to take to the Nürburgring and teach Akio how to drive. They're wearing the racing suits of Toyota. And then inevitably, you know what? They get Gazoo.com racing suits. And you know what they get after that? They get fucking Gazoo racing suits once it evolves beyond the .com. Like, these two men built the Gazoo racing brand together. Akio, while being like the guy in the boardroom, but also being Morizo, like just a guy who is a driving enthusiast and is Toyota's apprentice master driver. Like, he is both like the number one and outside the like ranking system of the corporation, thanks to the tutelage of this eternally old man.
Like how okay, like most recent picture on here, we'll say like the Gazoo racing like outfit. Like how old is the Nürmeister here?
At this point in time, the Gazoo.com
Yeah.
racing suits, this is roughly like 2008, so he would be in 1942.
Maybe like 60?
He's like 60
something.
6 almost
Yeah.
at this point. Yeah, he's an old man. Like, he's beyond like Medicare age here in America when most people retire. He's just like fucking in it for the love of the game. And a big project that helped keep him kind of past, like, he could have retired back in the days when they were making beige economy cars. He could have just decided to step aside and live a comfortable retirement. But a big part of the reason why he went out and challenged the young buck and like stuck around the company was there was like a symbiotic relationship between the two. Akio Toyoda gets the legitimacy of like, no, he became like, he was taught to be, he's a fucking race car driver.
Yeah.
On top of a CEO. And Naruse, a man whose entire like life's mission is to like, I gotta turn this fucking boring commuter car company around and make cool
Yeah.
cars again.
He knows he's leaving it in like good hands, sort of a deal.
Yeah, is to make a cool car, and we get that
Ooh.
in Toyota's arguably like only hypercar. Their first and arguably only.
Teacher, what constitutes a hypercar?
A hypercar is a car that is like it's extremely low production number.
Okay.
You don't make many of them. It can generally do about 200 miles an hour. There's like a threshold of like between the 180s and 200 miles per hour in top
just
speed.
like I feel you. You're going down like the checklist.
Yeah, but it's more than a supercar. Like if the Toyota 2000 GT was Toyota's first supercar with the oversight of Hiromu Naruse as well as the Supra and everything like that. He got to oversee the first development of Toyota's first hypercar. The company that makes at this point in time in 2002 is when this car inevitably begins to be teased a little bit as the codename TXS. And it was to demonstrate Lexus's performance capabilities. And one of the very exciting things about this was Hiromu Naruse is effectively the number one guy on this car. Like he, even over chief engineer of the vehicle, like he's the guy who has final say on this car, which is in part due to his like friendship with Akio Toyoda. And like one thing that's very difficult to describe to you guys without having to do an entire episode just in and of itself on concept cars and prototypes is how difficult it is to take a car from like something an engineer dreams up at their drafting table that inevitably becomes like a one-off concept car and prototype taken to like a race car, like to a racetrack to be like flaunted about or taken to some auto show, much like the Cyberbus that we were all just like complaining about at the beginning of this.
We all pointed and laughed.
That's a prototype. Like it takes so much to take it from that to a car that people can buy from a dealership and own themselves. And Hiromu Naruse is like, this is his magnum opus. This is like his swan song with the company is to build the best car that the Toyota Motor Corporation has ever made. So this begins around like the early 2000s. 2002 is where the like rumors start to rumble. Naruse placed above chief engineer, which is unheard of. Like chief engineer is the guy who should be making all of the decisions on a car, and this guy's just the chief test driver.
Yeah.
But he's been with the company for at this point 50 plus years. He is like maybe one of the longest tenured employees of the Toyota Motor Corporation at this point.
Oh, he's got a key to every room.
But he's that old badass man who could fucking drive anything anywhere and tell you what could be fixed about your vehicle.
And his best bro is the guy in charge of the whole fucking show by the mid 2000s.
Guy's only made good chess moves throughout life.
Yeah. In 2005, during the North American International Auto Show in Detroit, Toyota gives its first glimpse of what it's been possibly cooking up for a Lexus hypercar. This is the concept here that was first revealed to the world. It garnered a lot of attention of like, hey, Toyota, the company that makes the fucking Prius and the Camry.
Again, another beige-looking car.
I do like that they still have it in beige.
Some habits are hard to break.
Hey, we're the beige guys, but here's a fancy one.
And one of Naruse's demands is this car, including the 05 concept, is entirely developed at Toyota's office now, 2 miles away from the Nürburgring.
Okay.
So this car is entirely developed in Germany at the Toyota offices and tested exclusively on the Nürburgring track. Like this is a car developed to be a track weapon. As we can see here in 2007, we see 2 years later, because it takes a long time to do things, we have a racing concept for what will inevitably become the Lexus LFA, Toyota's first and really only hypercar. We can also see it's very subtle in the back, but we can see a Gazoo Racing as part of the livery. That's the first time we see that livery without a .com on the back. So while they're like starting their racing adventure with Gazoo.com, later in the year with this hypercar, they're already thinking about like what's the future of this project.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2009, Akio is CEO and president of Toyota Motor Corporation, and he announces at the Tokyo Auto Salon, along with his like directive to the company of no more boring cars. The first thing he introduces as president of the company is that the Lexus LFA will be built for production, and people will be able to buy them in a few years as they dial it in. It's going to sort of start around 2009. It's not officially available for purchase, but it's available for pre-purchase at that time. And they're also going to start racing it in earnest in like the prototype series of races around that time to celebrate 20 years of Lexus, which was started in 1989. So to celebrate like the 20th year anniversary, they wanted to like get something out to celebrate it. And once again, to talk about like Toyota history and learning about the lessons of the past to inform the future of the company, the
One large glue V10.
The 1LR GUE V10 was designed by Yamaha, the same people who had built the Toyota 2000 GT, Toyota's first sports car that they actually released to the market, a car that was put through its paces by Hiromu Naruse, and like partially developed by Toyota Team 7 along with Yamaha.
And here we are seeing decades of evolution into something like this.
In a V10, like Toyota, it's the first and only car that ever used a 10-cylinder engine.
Huh.
Toyota once made a V12 for their Toyota Century, like Yakuza boss or like Japanese diplomat, like Rolls-Royce imitator. But a V10, especially one that's like tuned to be a like sports car engine, high revving, naturally aspirated. It had a 3-pipe exhaust on the back of it that's widely regarded as like one of the best sounding cars ever made.
Ooh.
Which was a directive of Naruse-san of like this car has to sound amazing. It has to sound so good that when you get out from driving it, you want to get back in and start driving it again. It sounds better than like the V8 and V12 sports cars of like the Italians or the Germans. Many of the Top Gear critics, Jeremy Clarkson, James May, have said it is the best sounding car that they've ever witnessed and driven. And yeah, this was in development the entire time. And they decided to ape the process a little bit of the European hypercar makers, your Ferraris, your
Ferraris,
Lamborghinis.
Yeah. You give it scoops everywhere. Give it a low profile.
Oh no, you had to apply to buy this car.
Ooh.
They were only going to make 5,000 of them in the entire run. A extremely limited production number. And Zach, you might be able to speak on this a little bit as someone who comes from like that. You're a bit of a sneakerhead. You understand how limited production numbers, like how those drops work. It's, you know, you only make a small amount of them to increase the demand for the product. And yeah, typically, so them only making so many of the LFA, there was an application process. When like I remember watching a Colbert Report like live as like a teenager, like freshly out of high school, but not quite a man yet. About like lampooning that like Toyota, the company that makes the Camry, now wants you to submit an application for their Lexus LFA hypercar, where you're giving them like what your yearly salary is, what other cool cars you own, what sort of social circles you run in. There was an initial like idea that you wouldn't actually buy this car. You would just get to lease it for 2 years, and at the end of those 2 years, you got the opportunity to buy the car after leasing it for 2 years.
Wow.
They scrapped that, and then because they didn't want people to buy these and flip them. They'd seen what had happened to other hypercars, like the Ford GT, and things of that nature up until this point. And like, there's much
they wanted the people who bought these to drive these.
to be cool.
They
to
didn't
be,
want
to want
scalpers.
it.
Yeah.
They didn't want people who bought the car simply to park it somewhere and then sell it for a flip in value.
Yeah.
And so what they inevitably did wind up with is you could buy this car by ordering it through a Lexus dealership, but for a 5-year period, Toyota had the right of first refusal if you decided to sell the car. If you decided to sell the car, you had to approach Toyota first to have the opportunity to buy it back and put it on a dealership as a certified pre-owned Lexus LFA before you had the opportunity to sell it to someone else. And that was the contract agreement that you signed when you
They were
bought
serious
one of these
business.
cars.
I mean, it definitely. Zach, I don't know if you're with me on this one. Sounds more marketing stunt than actual thing. Just to drive up a status symbol out of the car.
Well, so I'm hearing this. Typically, I would accuse it, but for the story we have established over the last year of what Toyota represents, it kind of feels earnest.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like it's truly like we want whoever sits in this car to appreciate this car. So we're going to evaluate the selling process just so we can make sure this isn't a money grab for people. We want to make sure that you can enjoy this car because we put our time into it.
Yeah.
We're taking a risk on making this car available to people. Don't just make it something weird. Make it something that can be appreciated. It feels real, but I know corporations are corporations, so
Absolutely.
it could just be like a hype thing.
Painted Toyota in a very good light.
Yes, I have.
You are very biased, but you have still
Yes, I am.
painted them in an objectively good light.
Don't worry,
I don't think it's like a huckster thing, but at the same time,
I'll read them to Phil sooner rather than later. For the things they've not done
we
so
need a
good.
whole month of downfalls of Toyota.
Don't worry, that's
we deep dive into the brakes and
like I said. I
airbags.
remember watching, and this idea was still like, even though like I agree with Zach, like this was sort of an idea of theirs, like, hey, we want to be taken seriously as a hypercar maker, just like the big boys over in Europe, and so we're gonna do the same thing that they do with their process for buying specialized automobiles. It got lampooned. Like I said, I watched Stephen Colbert under his like false conservative pretext on the Rapport, absolutely blast the shit out of him for being like, oh, you make the Camry and now you want me to fucking apply to buy a car from you, whatever. And that may be a part of the reason why, but as we get closer to that like 2012 release date of the vehicle, it's confirmed for production by Toyota himself in 2009, and 2012 is sort of like the era of like, yes, that's when the cars are going to start coming out and the pre-orders are going to be fulfilled. So they were racing the LFA concepts since 2007. That was at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring.
Oh, okay.
It's at the racetrack that Akio Toyota.
People have seen it perform. They just can't wait to get their hands on one, and they have to wait.
And the Gazoo.com team. Like, this is the engineers. This is the mechanics. This is, once again, we're following Narusse's directive of, like, we're not racing to win. We are racing to learn. We are, like, we need to figure this car out. We need to get to know this car so that we can make this car the best it can be when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
As the deadline draws closer, come 2010, the mandate changes. We are no longer racing to learn. We are going to race to win.
We're here to kick ass
and
chew bubblegum.
Gazoo Racing fields the 2010 Lexus LFA prototype, and they do just that. They win the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. They win first in their class, of which includes many supercars like America's Supercar, the Chevy Corvette, like the C7 Corvettes are starting to show up on the scene and being tested. You have BMWs, Porsches, Audi R8s, the supercar from the Iron Man movies. You have even a company that has a racing pedigree in Aston Martin with a factory-fielded team for their DBS Sport Coupe. And the Lexus LFA wins the entire class in 2010. And to celebrate, the success of both like the development and testing in the Nürburgring and its first race, they decide they're also going to make an even more exclusive LFA that they're only going to make 50 of, the Nürburgring edition. It has more carbon fiber. It's got a dedicated full-time spoiler. It's got canards here up
A
front.
full-time spoiler.
Not a part-time spoiler.
Boys, you know that cars do have spoilers that'll come up and down when you're going fast.
Yeah.
That's a real feature in cars that they do. So they decided, hey, we're going to make a special, even more exclusive 50 editions of the Nürburgring that will sell to like our most exclusive customers and our biggest like profile clientele. And that, who was it tested by? None other than Hiromu Naruse. Like the ultimate edition of the ultimate car that Toyota has ever made. And it was tested in 2010.
Good Lord, he would have been, what, almost 70 at that point? 80?
68 years old.
Okay.
Yes. And unfortunately...
No!
Smokes.
No!
You can't park there.
I'm incredibly sorry to say, and I've actually gotten choked up multiple times in making this presentation, and there's a good chance I'll get choked up now. Talking about how on June 23rd of 2010, a month after the LFA wins its first 24 hours of the Nürburgring, Hiromu Naruse was finishing up some final test laps at the Nürburgring in the Nürburgring edition of the LFA, and he was driving the 2 miles back from the racetrack to Toyota's development headquarters. When we don't know why, but he drifted into the opposite lanes at high speeds and collided head-on with a BMW M3 test vehicle. There were 3 victims of the accident, 2 BMW drivers and Naruse-san himself. And Naruse-san was the only fatality in the crash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Blindsided us, brother.
I'm sorry.
Whoa.
I'm a little choked up. It took me a couple times getting real choked up by myself in my office designing this to not fully just start bawling. Today at the crash site, there is a Japanese weeping cherry tree and a German cherry blossom that grow over that guardrail as a symbol of like the tragedy that occurred that day, and as a tip of the cap to the Japanese driver who has put the most seat time in at the Nürburgring.
But how poetic, though, to die in the vehicle, the passion. I mean, you built the story that way as well. That, he'd come home from test driving cars to go drive with his wife and children. But that was his profession. That was his everything. Mm-hmm. And quite an example of how fragile that profession is. He can be right 99.9% of the time and be so safe. And he put into his job was making those things safer. But is that 0.1% of the chance time that it slips away, and all of his hard work right there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it wasn't for naught. I mean, the company and Gazoo Racing picked up the pieces. Toyota-san himself delivered the eulogy at Naruse's funeral. As president of the company at this time, Toyota-san had to grip with the fact of do I shut down Gazoo Racing? We've lost our spiritual center. It's super dangerous. I'm the CEO of the company at this point. But had decided ultimately that Naruse-san would want it to continue and did not shut down the Gazoo Racing division. There was sort of a moratorium on driving until 10 months later. A pro race car driver from multiple different disciplines who had begun to race for Gazoo Racing at the time, Akira Aida, ran the Nürburgring LFA, that special edition we see crumpled in front of us.
Okay.
to a production car record lap of 7 minutes, 14 seconds, and 46 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds faster than the previous champion's Porsche 911 GT2 RS, piloted by the previously discussed test driver Walter Roll. So, the last car Naruse-san ever drove, when it was finally put to the test, became the best car for the time to make it around the Nordschleife. It made it around the quickest.
Stunning.
Yeah. Success of
Stunning.
a lifetime of work.
Absolutely. A man whose fingerprints cross everything I've discussed in all of my episodes gets like sort of a post-mortem tribute. And that isn't the only thing that Naruse's legacy touches and continues to live on. As I say in this slide here, the legacy lives on. It lives on in all forms of Toyota. Gazoo Racing has become ubiquitous with all of their car brands that are not a truck. I discussed all of those badges. You have the GR Sport, which is not a Gazoo Racing official car. It's just a Gazoo Racing inspired vehicle, like the IQ, which is a tiny little, even smaller than Yaris, Econobox. Or even the Toyota Century, the luxurious Yakuza limousine that Toyota makes with a V12 engine, has a GR variant. And it touches everything. And you have your GR parts, which are like Gazoo Racing parts for your road car, your regular Camry, your regular Avalon, your regular G86. You have GR Sport editions that are inspired by Gazoo Racing. You now have multiple GR models of cars. You have the GR Yaris, the GR Corolla, the GR86, the GR Supra. And they continue to live on. The LFA, the car that Hiromu Naruse was his brainchild, continued to race at the Nürburgring, with it taking third in its class in the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in 2011 and winning in 2012, and a new GR86, a car built by Subaru and Toyota with its name being an homage to the A86 Corolla, a car that he had test driven, and a car that Kaiichi Tsuchiya had driven to fame, to the point that it is now a $45,000 used car from 30 fucking years ago. That won its class at the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring in 2014. And in 2015, Morizo saw his return to racing. He did not race from the time of Naruse-san's death until 5 years later, when he returned to the Nürburgring himself and piloted the last LFA.
Keanu Reeves.
No, as good old Naruse-san right here. Good old Morizo. He piloted the car himself in an LFA and won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring for the second time in that car's history. Gazoo Racing continues to live on. I talked about that highest echelon of the Gazoo Racing badging. You have the GRMN nameplate, which is on all three of these cars that I have down below here. It is the highest echelon edition of the Yaris, the Corolla, the 86, and the Supra. And it stands for Gazoo Racing Meister, tuned by the Meister of the Nürburgring.
Oh.
The Nürmeister.
Wow.
Akio Toyota, once Naruse-san had passed and he had returned to racing, assumed the title of Master Driver and continues to hold that title to this day. And he also undertook, during his time as president of the company, the Herculean effort of revitalizing and resurrecting the most important nameplate of the entire brand, the Toyota Supra. There were many rumors from the time I was a young man buying my first Supra in 2008 that Toyota was coming back with a Supra. And then a decade later, in 2018, it was officially announced that they were. They had partnered with BMW, and they were beginning production of a fifth generation Supra. At this point in time, Gazoo Racing had been broken off into its own independent company under the umbrella of Toyota to ensure that they were someone in charge of making sure that there were no boring cars being made. That Toyota could not interfere with their production and the things that they were inventing. Akio Toyota was also at the head of that as well. And then in late 2018, when the prototype photos had been seen, and the world wanted to know when the Supra would be ready to see enter production in 2019. Akio Toyota, as the head of Gazoo Racing and Toyota, was asked what was left to do. His response was, "We must wait for Morizo to drive the Supra at the Nürburgring and give his final approval." We see that picture here in late 2018, early 2019. You can see him and the boys are wearing shirts that say the Supra is back. He competed in the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, like all of their Toyota performance cars, since his partnership with Nürmeister and Gazoo Racing. He raced the Supra at the ring. They didn't win their class or anything of that nature. It wasn't a stunning victory, but the car did finish, and Akio said afterwards, "Nürmeister, we have finally come back to the Nürburgring with the new Supra." Bringing full circle the car that he had learned to drive at the Nürburgring with, he had brought back to the Nürburgring and kept Nürmeister's legacy alive.
Wow. From the ashes, too.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, boys.
Beautiful.
It's going to take me a minute to not get choked up.
It's poetic.
Yeah.
It's so poetic. It's a poetic story you wouldn't find anywhere in, what a relationship.
Nobody's
to
tried
craft.
to adapt this yet. Nobody's tried to make a fucking book about this yet.
No one's made a Disney Pixar movie about this or anything like that.
Nobody stretched this out to 5 seasons of a fucking racing anime yet.
Not yet. We could be those boys. And
that's beautiful. That's
the
a beautiful
Gazoo
tale.
Racing legacy continues to live on. They are dominating the motorsport world currently. From 2018 to present, to this very day as we sit here and speak, the World Endurance Championship, which includes races like the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the most brutal races, subject their cars to the most grueling conditions and running for 24 hours straight. So not only is the car being put through its paces, but the drivers are as well. Gazoo Racing has dominated for the past 5, presumably 6 years. They're doing really well this season. In World Rally Championship, where the GR Yaris, an all-wheel drive, turbocharged 3-cylinder economy hatch, the spiritual successor to the ST Celicas that we've covered during our TRD Rally series, has won the WRC's Manufacturer Championship in 2018. They took a break in 2019 and 2020 because there wasn't anyone racing because of COVID. But in 2021, to this very day, that car is the #1 car. They've won the Manufacturers Cup, which is you are the best automaker in this sport to this very day. They've even treaded on TRD's turf a little bit in 2021. They entered a Gazoo Racing Toyota Hilux for the Paris to Dakar rally, a grueling rally from Paris in Europe all the way through the Middle East into Dakar, which is in the Saharan African desert. It's a ultimate Baja 500, and the Hilux won first in its class in a Gazoo Racing livery for that as well. And the success of Gazoo Racing, its popularity, how it becomes ubiquitous and how it becomes popular, has extended from the world of cars and has even infected the world of celebrity as well, as we see here. Just this past weekend on October 5th and 6th, Keanu Reeves, one of Bill or Ted, the guy from fucking Point Break, The guy Neo from the Matrix,
The guy from the Matrix.
Jonathan Wickersham himself,
Speed and Speed.
Mr. Speed from Speed and Speed 2, has gotten in on it. At 60 years old, Keanu Reeves decided to make his pro racing debut at the Indianapolis 500 Speedway as a part of the GR Cup, a racing series named after the racing team that was a pipe dream of Hiromu Naruse and Akio Toyoda. It has its own racing series now around the world where they like test and qualify drivers, including the fucking one himself. He raced a GR86, the hybrid child of Subaru and Toyota, rear-wheel drive, four-cylinder car, tracing back to the roots of the AE86 drift car, wearing a berserker, as you can see on his sleeve here.
Some sort of anime, one of those ding-dang animus.
It's an Americanized manga that he's involved with, as you can see here from our very like anime-ass fucking Keanu Reeves here on the hood.
I take back my marketing stunt statement earlier because this definitely yes.
But yeah, he wore number 92, and he took place in his first pro race ever. A worldwide and world-beloved celebrity. Ran his first race. He barely made it out of, he qualified very well. He was only 6 seconds behind the guy who took pole position for his particular race. And unfortunately for Keanu, he did spin out. But he was able to keep control of his car enough that he was able to get back on track, and he finished 25th out of 32, and 25th was the last place of people who were actually able to finish the race. So he did finish his first professional race.
He finished the race.
In his Gazoo Racing 86. There was also a YouTuber from the Dude Perfect channel who made his pro racing debut in this, but fuck that guy. He's not the one. I didn't see him in no Matrix, so I'm not going to talk about him. But yeah, that's just now, in a short period of time, how something that went from unsanctioned, you had to buy your own cars and race.
Yeah. A dream between an old man and a young man, and how they can make their company better, but not just that, but cars itself better.
The flagship product that is being raced by the brightest stars that Hollywood has to offer, under the Gazoo Racing nameplate. And the last thing I want to touch on here is one final fitting tribute to Hiromu Naruse. All of this is done to celebrate his legacy with the company. But now, if you are to go and visit the Aichi Prefecture in northern Japan, where Toyota City is, at Toyota's Kaikon Museum, you can see the 2011 season Lexus LFA, still with the road grime, as you can see here, plastered to the front of the vehicle, all the bug guts and the asphalt that got kicked up onto it. As it began, it's a Nürburgring edition. It was one of the first that they ran in the series, the one that won in 2012, and then later in 2015 under Morizo's pilot. You can see the car sitting there, but as you notice in the background, a black racing suit. Along the belt, you can just barely see, but there is the initials H. Naruse embroidered on the belt. And there are the two trophies of the 24 Hours of Nürburgring that the Toyota team and Gazoo Racing was able to win. And so he eternally watches over arguably the greatest performance car Toyota ever made. Its test driver watches over it for eternity. That's all I got, boys. I don't have a next time. I don't have anything else. The only thing I have left is I do want to give all credit to Ryan Zumalin. He is a writer for Road and Track magazine. Without his article that he wrote on a trip to Hiromu Naruse's home country and interviewing Toyota, the people who worked with Hiromu Naruse during his tenure at Toyota, speaking to his subordinates, speaking with even Akio Toyoda himself, Without that article, I would not have had the information to make this presentation. So I do want to take a moment and thank Ryan for that piece that he wrote in 2017, because without it, I wouldn't have had a capstone to the project I've been working on for roughly 2 years now. That's it, boys. That's it for my initial run of Toyota episodes.
Dude,
Finale.
great
Beautiful.
job.
Beautiful.
Thank you, boys.